What's happening, everybody, and welcome to another very special episode of the Good Kraken Show. More specifically, a Let's Get Kraken episode. We are back again. I'm one of your hosts, Ernell Pearson, alongside the inevitable one, Devin Stanford.
Glorious purpose.
I fucking love it. And we have the lovely Crimson Beard himself, Garrick Eakin.
How dare you get my name wrong? It's Vermilion.
No, it's Crimson. The Crimson Chin. You are the Crimson jawline.
The Crimson Chin.
There you go. And then we have the Queen of Bitchin' themselves, Genesee Gabrielle. Hello.
Hey, bitches.
Hey, bitches. I love it. It's tight. Guys, we are here back again together again for a lovely opportunity to talk all about the series Loki. Last time we were together, we got together for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Unfortunately, we weren't able to fully get together for Black Widow, which is fine. That was a little bit more of a minimal experience. I didn't think we were kind of losing anything out on that. But we have a lovely series to talk about today. And today we're going to be doing it a little bit differently than we usually do. Or usually we have half the episode, we do full spoiler free, and then the last half of the episode we go into full spoilers and talk about whatever we talk about. We are labeling this as a full spoiler cast this time because it is going to be fucking impossible to talk about anything with this show unless we give some damn details. You know what I mean? I want us to get hype. I want us to get tinfoil hats on. I want us to be in the full scale of talking about the wonderful experience that was Loki. But first, we're going to be doing this with talking about our general thoughts. And I want to start with you, Devin. What were your general thoughts going in and coming out of Loki?
So when I started it, I had no idea what to expect besides knowing that there was some form, some way of time travel. That's all I knew, going into it. I did not expect him to get captured right away, the way he did. I did not expect the Infinity Stones to not matter at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't expect a lot of things at all. I kind of had a feeling it was just going to be good because it's MCU. Everything's been pretty good. Even the bad stuff in the MCU is still better than almost everything else. Yep. You know what I mean? So it's like coming out of it, I have so many questions, but like in a very good way and in an exciting way, because now that literally Marvel has a scapegoat in a sense where they can do anything they want. Yeah. They can bring back dead characters. They can recast characters. They could do anything they want. And watching Loki's arc that he had throughout that show, which was almost kind of similar between Ragnarok and Infinity War in a way, but this was like a more honest to himself Loki, like this version that we got. And one thing that I didn't even think about till the end of the series, this isn't just a random variant of Loki. That is the Loki that we know from the MCU, because instead of them going to a different multiverse, all they did is go back in time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and I just want to say Tom Hiddleston's performance too was perfect. That look of just loss at the end of that final episode, after everything happened, when he sat down, when he was back in the TVA, which we'll get more into, but just like that was like, I felt so bad, I felt that emotion he was portraying. Yeah. But those are my quick hits right there.
Okay. Genesee, what were your general thoughts on Loki?
Ernell already knows I made him a little upset after I finished. It wasn't my fave. I'm going to say that. Devin and I already chatted about how Loki, the character, is not one of my favorite characters. Honestly, he might make my list of like least favorites, if we're being honest. But But there were a lot of things in the show, especially like before the finale, where I was like, okay, I'm not a Loki fan, but I'm a Loki the show fan. Like it was really engaging me way more than I thought it would. Sylvie, oh, my pansexual heart, Sylvie.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom Hiddleston is gorgeous and amazing, and he does a phenomenal job with Loki. But Sylvie Supremacy is the team that I am on today. And so, yeah, there was that. I think just overall, it really, they did a great job of setting stuff up, right? And that was the point. We know now there's going to be a second season, which at the end, I was most disappointed in two things. I was most disappointed that it was like the whole season was like a tease for the second one, is what it felt like to me. Because I was like, we didn't get any resolution. It was just like, but I will be here for season 2. So I don't know, there's that. And then the second thing was, I have a thing about characters and character development. I consider myself to be a pretty gullible person when it comes to like, if you give me a story and you're like, yes, this person loves pie and they love pie because their grandmother was a pie maker and it's their entire character arc. I'm like, I love that for her. You know, like I am that bitch. That's
okay.
Like, you know, but I struggle. So like when a character's character arc is so hard for me to believe, it feels like you messed something up. And I felt that way with Loki in the series, because this character, while the Loki in this was very interesting, very engaging, and his like emotional moments, like they pulled at me and I was like, oh yes, it didn't feel like the Loki from, what is it, 2012 is when he's supposed to be from?
Yeah.
That didn't make sense to me. It would even be a push for me for that to be the Loki that we saw in the beginning of Infinity War. You know what I mean? And that one had so much character development. But we're going back.
If I could interrupt you just really quick. So this is something that is one of the first things I pointed out to Devin, was that I was unsold entirely in the first couple of episodes that this was the Loki from the Avengers movie. And I remember telling Devin about this, like how I was like, not like unsold on it, but I was like uncomfortable with the idea that this Loki came from that, because he was acting so rambunctious and so just out there and fun and giddy and like doing things that we didn't see from Loki prior to where this was in the timeline. So I get where you're coming from for sure. I wanted to mention, Devin, you looked like you were about to jump in for a second. What were you gonna say?
I think the big change that made him like transition as a character so fast and so soon in the series is because he saw his whole life played out before his eyes. He saw everything, which we didn't see everything. But if you've seen the MCU, you already know everything that happens to him. And he saw everything that happened to him. And he replayed that part at the end multiple times.
I want to get into that a little bit deeper later on, because right now I want us to get the rest of our general thoughts. So Genesee, go for it. Continue on where you were. I'm sorry.
Those are the big things for me. Those are the big things, and kind of just generally how I felt about the series. Like, I can't really hate anything from the MCU. I just can't do it. But I didn't love it. So those are my big things. I have so much to say about the bisexuality, so much, but that's going to need its own.
We'll get there. We will get there.
Okay.
I promise you.
Okay.
Garrick, what were your general thoughts on Loki?
I'm kind of in the same boat as Genesee in the fact that, like, so for context, my wife's like favorite character in the MCU is Loki.
Really?
And I was she's like just a Loki stan. And she's a lot of MCU people stan, to be fair, but I digress. But like he's always just been kind of like for me. Like I enjoyed him, like his role in the film and like how it progressed the story along, but like I was never overly interested in his particular, like his individual story arc. But I love the show. And like, you know, just when we were discussing the last episode, like this is my 2021 show of the year so far, and I hadn't even seen the finale yet. But I feel like directionally the show pretty much went exactly where I thought it was gonna go, especially with the ending. Because I told my wife, I was like, "This is exactly what this is setting up," and I more or less just deduced that from like the previous like phase 4 like scheduling list with like the whole multiverse of madness. So it's just like obviously like this is gonna be the primer for like the bigger expansion on the like phase 4. So it pretty much went where I thought it was going to, but it's not without its issues. Even though I really enjoyed it, like I kind of also had a problem with Loki's development, and I get what especially with what Devin is saying, with like he basically saw his life flash before his eyes and saw his own murder.
Right.
So I imagine that's got a traumatizing effect on one's person, but like I still had a hard time believing, at least for like probably the first couple of episodes, I was just like, you just made the same leaps and then some in character development that the other version of you did in like 6 movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So I saw this picture today saying that Loki's going to be in Doctor Strange, and like you were talking about multiverse of madness and stuff. So like it just kind of dawned on me. It's like, oh, I should check into that today, saying that and I hate to interject on this, but I just thought this was very relevant. I went to CBR.com and it is confirmed Loki, Tom Hiddleston, is confirmed to be in Doctor Strange 2 and the Multiverse of Madness.
For sure.
He is a confirmed character now.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Now the scale,
so I wonder,
the scale in which he's a character though is up for question, because like even though he's going to be in Doctor Strange, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be in Doctor Strange. You know what I mean? Genesee, go ahead.
Yeah.
Also, talking about cast lists, do you guys remember when we went and looked for the cast list for Loki to try to figure out who would be in it? Those fuckers lied to us.
They did.
Valkyrie was nowhere.
They fucking
I don't
did.
trust them.
Yeah, you
I
are
don't trust
100%
them.
right. Yeah, we looked up.
Was she paid for that? Because she should have been paid for that.
Valkyrie.
I hope she fucking deserves to be. If she was getting you flipped around like that, but anyways, Garrett, go ahead and finish your thoughts.
But yeah, it's just like I thoroughly enjoyed the show from start to finish, and honestly, it kind of gave me Doctor Who vibes a little bit, which was I think my initial draw, because I like the wibbly wobbly timey wimey. So like that was kind of what set me on the course to enjoy the show. And then I think just being able to relate to the characters and having like already established the MCU and just being really excited for like, because I felt like this, like Falcon and Winter Soldier and WandaVision were both great series in their own right, but I was like, yep, this is the series that's going to set up all the movies we're going to see for like this entire phase. And like that, it was the series that made me hype for what's to come.
Yeah.
You know, actually, no, continue. I'll touch on this later.
No, that's pretty much it.
For sure.
That was
for sure. So, do you want to say what you want to say, Devin?
No. Just a little bit later. I got stuff later.
We'll be touching on some stuff. It's gonna be good. So my thoughts really is just like I'm sort of in a even spread between all of you, where I started out being very skeptical on this show and started out really not enjoying it more than I enjoyed it. There were some parts that I did enjoy, and we'll kind of be going over step by step like some of these beats and stuff that happened during the show. But overall, like I ended up actually really, really enjoying it by the time I got to the end of the final episode, and how they sort of utilize everything that they set up in the show to get to that final point at the very, very end, and how they set up these relationships in a way that like would make us emotionally feel what was happening at the final episode. So there's a lot of really good stuff that came of this. It's just the first 3 episodes I was very weird on. There was a lot of weird, like I mentioned earlier, the Loki just for me was not believable. I had a hard time really grasping him in the first 3 episodes. The relationship between him and Sylvie in the first episode when they go to the planet that's being destroyed, I was at first very weird about it, and then I really, really enjoyed it by the end of that episode. And then I stopped believing it for an episode afterwards because they had some weird dynamics there in the 4th episode. And then I got tied back in by the 5th and 6th episode. So it's weird because it's like my thoughts really in summary are just like I ebbed and flowed this entire season of this show, and sort of just got a little spread thin on a lot of different feelings that I had, because I had so many of them, because there's so many awesome things that happen in this fucking show episode by episode. And then there's just some things that I feel like could have been done a little bit better. And we'll kind of go into the details of that, because I want to actually go like episode by episode and talk some of the details that we enjoyed in this, because we're doing a full spoiler cast, so we have time to do that. So there is there's some caveats I definitely have. There's some things that I was concerned about, but when we look at the overall ending result of everything, I think they did a wonderful job of not just using Loki as sort of a throwaway thing to get us into the entryway of what's happening in the rest of Phase 4. I think they did a really good job of like giving a decent story with Loki and giving us a decent character arc with Loki that we could actually care about. Because, I mean, at the end of it all, it's like we got the character arc that Loki experienced throughout the course of 24 movies now, I believe it is, and into a 6-episode show, because it's like by the time if we see like where he got taken in Avengers at the end of the Avengers, we can see his difference in who he is because of things that Devin said, like seeing his life flash before his eyes physically already, and then having people like Mobius show him kindness, and having that sort of lead him in a certain direction, and then having Sylvie kind of like give him this sort of like jaded aspect for him to really look upon in order for him to like evaluate his feelings and where he is. And one of the big things that I pointed out to Devin the other day, actually, when him and I were talking about this on the phone, was like they used Sylvie in such an interesting way of Loki being able to look at his own flaws dianetically, where he's able to sort of, instead of just, you know, deflect, he has himself here in front of him to say, look, this is why you're fucked up, because this is why I'm fucked up. And it's actually just him having that dialogue within himself existentially. And so it's interesting to see how they did that, and how they, you know, they kind of use another character to sort of like have that conversation with us as an audience and with Loki himself to get him to the point of where he is by the end of the final episode. Obviously, I have more thoughts that we will get into a little bit later on, but now I want to get into some episode by episode details, and I think that's going to be kind of the bulk of the stuff here. So we're going to start here with episode 1. Okay, Loki gets taken by the TVA, gets cracked in the face by Hunter B16 or whatever her name is, and it's fucking great, right?
B15.
Yeah, B15.
B15. There we go. I was close. And goes through the entire process of being judged and running into the Infinity Stones and all that good shit. I want to start with you, Devin. When you came into the first episode, how were you feeling by the end of the first episode?
It was anything that happened in any Marvel movie, literally up until that point, does not matter. That's the vibe I got right away. Like this, just seeing the Infinity Stones just tossed away in a drawer, then talking about them using them as paperweights. Yeah. I was like, they're going to do it. They're going to break the multiverse. Everything that happened before Loki does not matter at all anymore. Like literally nothing matters anymore. That's the vibe I got, you know?
Yeah.
So,
sure.
and that was like my biggest moment in the first episode.
Okay, Genesee, what was your initial thinking going in by the end of episode 1, going to the rest of the season?
I feel like mine was tangential to that. Like, if there was any doubt before then that Marvel was leaving behind every phase before and diving straight into phase 4, that's where I was like, oh, we're getting it. Like, it's going to be a whole new ball game in phase 4, and Loki is setting up the bricks. And that was my thing in episode 1. And I was pretty engaged with it. Episode 1, episode 2 was where I was like, all right, I'm in.
Okay, cool. Garrick, what were your thoughts on episode 1 by the end?
My I was a little underwhelmed kind of the first episode. I understand they had to do a lot of very quick world building there, but I had more questions than answers, which was the goal. But it was a little frustrating, I felt like, to just be like the Infinity Stone thing kind of fucked me up. I was just like, wait, what? I have so many
I think that
questions
fucked
now.
all of us up a little
Like,
bit.
yeah.
Like,
I very much felt the same way that Loki did at the end of the episode. I was just like, is this the greatest power in the universe? Like, what is happening? Like, it was just like the paperweights. I was like, bros, like we literally watched like so many of our characters die for those stupid rocks.
So, like, and like iterating on that too, then what is the time stone if it doesn't work between time?
was the time stone in that drawer?
Yes, it's
Was
the
it?
green one.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
what really, really bugged me about that is they never 100% addressed the location of where the TVA was.
Yeah.
And that really, so like, it made me think that like it had to be in some sort of weird, like, pocket of space at a time sort of
Yeah.
scenario.
We'll be going into it. We'll be going into because I know Devin has some big thoughts on some of that stuff. So when we get into our like thoughts on like the future stuff, that's when we'll get into it. So now, as far as episode 1, I was kind of in the same boat with Garrick, where I was like, in the beginning, I was like, is this all fake? Like, what the fuck is happening right now? I was like,
Where's Ashton?
Yeah, I thought it was just like a weird staged thing that was happening to him, and I was like, what in the fuck is going on? And then the Infinity Stone part happened, and I was like, oh, that's rough. Like, that's like, dude, this is big. Like, this could be something that we didn't think it was going to be. By the time I got to the end of the episode, I was again a little weirded out about Loki. But the one thing I want to point out, Mobius, because this was our introduction to him and his sort of weird buddy cop relationship with Loki, and I loved every fucking second of it. Mobius was the goddamn star of the first like 3 episodes of the show, man.
Who knew that Owen Wilson needed to be in the MCU?
Who would have fucking thought?
Like he fell into it so naturally.
Can we get a
like,
wow?
That mustache too. That mustache.
Yeah, the mustache.
Beautiful. Let's get some wows in the chat for Owen Wilson.
Wow.
Wow.
Man, we fucked up. It's not a command.
I know. I'll probably make a command for it later. Anyways, moving into episode 2, it's called The Variant. And this is when they start chasing down Sylvie. Or before Sylvie is revealed as Sylvie specifically, we see that they're trying to chase down the Variant. And figuring out how in the world this variant is hiding away from them. This is when Loki formulates that the variant is potentially hiding within natural calamities that happen in world history and in the future. And so we had a lot of interesting stuff here. This episode ends with the half betrayal on Loki's part when he walks through the gate. All the bombs go off. Or not go off, the time grenades fall into portals, and then we don't know where they go. Sylvie is revealed as Sylvie, walks through the gate, and Loki chases and follows. Mobius makes me want to cry.
Wowbius.
It's wild. It's wild.
Mobius.
Devin, episode 2. What are you thinking?
I thought it was really cool. They kept talking about the devil coming, you know. And the whole time we just thought it was a generic, like another version of Loki. Like episode 2, we're like, oh, are they just making this an evil Loki? Like we thought it was like a dude. They talked about how he gave the child the gum and stuff, the kablooey, right?
Yeah, kablooey.
Called?
Kablooey. Yeah.
And she said the devil gave it to her. You know, so we all thought it was like a dude Loki. Well, in hindsight, he who remains called himself the devil at the end, and he was talking about everything. So I think he was the one that actually had that interaction, and not Sylvie.
Oh,
because remember, because at the end, he talked about how he paved the whole path for them.
Yes. Well, now
so I think he was in the background without us knowing he was in the background, and it was only through subtle references.
It's interesting too, though, because you could also perceive that because of the horns on the Loki crowns. So it's
That's
like,
that's how I. That's how,
yeah,
That's
how
what
I
that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but then I started thinking about it a little bit deeper last night when I was really thinking about it. So
I like
it's-
that.
topical on it.
anyways,
I love
continue.
that.
Continue on your thoughts on that.
Episode 2 is good, I think, but I'm gonna be honest, that was definitely the weakest episode for me. Personally.
Really?
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite ones. That's wild. I'll get into it later, but
Yeah, but it was good. It was setting the stage. It did real. It kind of poured the foundation for the friendship that Mobius and Loki started having. You know, where they started working together and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And and I appreciated the episode for that part. And then, you know, at the end of the episode, of course, the reveal that nothing matters in the apocalypse. You know. So,
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, Genesee,
So.
what were your thoughts on episode 2?
Okay, so episode 2, like I mentioned before, this was a turning point for me where I like really got invested in the show. Loved the Sylvie reveal. That was a big part for me where I was like, okay, I'm on board.
Yes.
And also, that was where they really sold what I consider to be one of the key themes, like one of the key, like not Marvel related themes, because in every Marvel movie, there's like an underlying theme that has more application to the real world, right? A favorite is like, Captain America is all about like neo-Nazism, right? And so many of the movies have like ecological, impacts, right? And then Iron Man had his whole like crisis about the war in the Middle East and stuff like that, right?
Yes,
And funding
yes.
that inadvertently. And this one for me was the underlying theme was, and this might be kind of niche, but the underlying theme really had to do with public administration and the crises of public administration professionals, especially current day. And it's only been exacerbated in the last year in the pandemic, but this has been a problem for the last like 5 decades. And I will say I got my degree in this, so that's why I say it's kind of niche, because I was watching this and I was like, was this made for me? Like, and Mobius's entire character is having this huge crisis about, I devoted my life to serving the public good, to serving the betterment of time. And this organization that I devoted my life to is a lie. And I was like, public administrators everywhere finally have representation.
Right.
And so that for me, like that was when I first started seeing that really shine through. Because obviously the first episode, you're introduced to the TVA and you see that it is like this quasi-governmental, like public, what we would consider a public agency that oversees time variations. And so we get to see that. But then in episode 2, you get more into Mobius and his dedication to the cause. You get into Loki wanting to kind of use that and abuse that, and then you get that beautiful scene where they're like in the records. I think that's episode 2, where the little like time clock chick is like,
Miss
that's
Minutes.
classified. Miss Minutes, yeah. She's like, that's classified. That's classified. Can't give you that. Can't give you that.
And then the librarian does it too. That was a thing as
So
well.
good.
Yeah.
So good. I was like, wow, this is, except like in the real world, it would be like, oh, well, there's a code, so we can't actually do that. We can't actually change this. Like, we can't make any real change. You know, that would be the
Fill
thing
out
for
this
us.
form and resubmit in 365 days.
right.
Literally, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Garrick, what were your thoughts on episode 2?
I was a little frustrated and surprised, mostly with the Sylvie reveal. Not because I dislike her character. I actually really love Sylvie. But, like, I don't know if everybody caught it, or maybe this is just my interpretation of it, but, like, I was a little peeved when I felt like they were initially combining Lady Loki and the Enchantress into one character.
Which they did kind
Because-
of do.
Which they kind of did do, because they really introduced Lady Loki, Sylvie, as like her only showcase like magical power was enchantment. And I was just like, that's an interesting take, because like they had 2 different character arcs in the comics, and I understand the combining of them just for simplicity's sakes. But I think I would have initially like I was probably disappointed in that episode the most because I wanted to see like the two different characters' individual potential in like in the MCU, but like really like that. But it also kind of it's what kept me watching because of Mobius and Loki's relationship I found interesting enough that I was able to get over like my Enchantress pet peeve and kind of move on.
For sure.
So yeah, kind of where I'm at. I didn't have a whole lot of thoughts on that one. I just remember being really annoyed about the Enchantress thing when I first watched it. I was like, that's not what I wanted.
You know that they could have another variant that is just the Enchantress now.
They could. The possibility is very much open now. See, but I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know.
Yeah,
that
for sure. For sure.
Like, this is bullshit.
For sure.
But
So I'm this like I mentioned earlier, this episode was one of my favorite ones, and a lot of that was mainly because the relationship building between Mobius and Loki. This was also weirdly had my least favorite Loki in the show, because this is when he started becoming like bombacious and crazy and doing weird things that I was not used to this Loki doing, based on where he came into on the timeline. But the way that they set up his relationship with Mobius was so just like entertaining and fun and heartfelt in all the ways that I needed it to be in order for me to be sold on their friendship. I was all in. I was all in. Them bouncing in and out of different like apocalypses was fucking great. Them talking about that, the scene in Pompeii when when Loki starts dancing on like the wagon or whatever, trying to like fuck up that timeline, and then
nothing matters. You're all
yes. Well, and then they have that weird moment of silence right after he says that, just with the volcano just exploding in the background. I was like, this is fucking great. This is absolutely awesome. But then the last like 10 minutes of the episode, with everything building up to that Sylvie reveal, into the actual Sylvie reveal, and then moving forward into that, I thought was fucking dope. I thought everything was sick. The way that they used Sylvie's enchantment to have that conversation with Loki, where she enchanted the hunter, she enchanted the guy in the store, she enchanted the store manager, and then eventually had that conversation slightly with Loki at the end. But this episode I also had some weirdness about, because this was sort of like the start of some main concern I have for the show overall, is how they dumb down whether or not Loki can hold his own, which was interesting, because in a course of the MCU movies, Loki actually kicks some ass. He's not Thor, but he beats ass throughout a course of like, he fights dark elves on another planet in Thor Dark World, but you're telling me he can't fight enchanted Loki well without grabbing something off a shelf and beating the shit out of a big guy in a mini mart with it? Like, I was a little bit weirded out about details like that. But we go into the whole moment of everything ramping up at the end of the episode. The portal's open, the time grenades drop through. We have no clue where they're actually going. Gate opens, Sylvie's like, blah, 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 I'm kind of hot. And then she walks through the gate, and Loki doesn't know what to do, so he goes chasing after her. This episode was fucking wonderful. I loved a lot of what they did in this episode in comparison to the rest. Now, we move into episode 3 here, and this is Lamentus. And this is the episode that was committed to Loki and Sylvie building that relationship that they have. Devin, what were your feelings on episode 3?
Okay. Huge Guardians of the Galaxies vibe in this episode.
Yes.
Yeah. Like huge, like the atmosphere, the world, just the look, the cinematic feel of it. This is when I went, it was like, oh, this is big budget. You know what I mean? Like this is getting big now. I love the falling moon onto the planet and all the little like meteors.
Cool.
It was so cool.
Oh my god.
And like watching them traverse it, like they went from fighting to like helping each other and traversing and just talking shit to each other the whole time while they ran through. I loved it. I love watching Sylvie get blasted by the air cannon.
Oh, that part was gold. That part was gold.
Yeah.
My husband
Yeah.
hasn't said anything nice to me in a year. Like,
Yeah. That was great. And I know I'm kind of skimming through really fast, but I wanted to reiterate on the fighting of Loki and his skill and his power, because that was the moment that I was like, why is Loki so weak?
Yeah.
Why are these guys able to grab Loki, a god, and throw him out a window on a moving train?
This episode sort of solidified my weirdness about it too.
Yeah. And that's my biggest complaint is we at the beginning of this movie, was taken at the end of, I mean, not movie, show. Sorry. At the beginning of the show, he was taken by the Avengers after he just attacked the city of New York and almost decimated the whole city with an alien race. And if you remember in Avengers, and this is funny, this is kind of what solidifies Loki's ability in fighting without him even really fighting, is when Hulk beat the living shit out of him and smacked him around in that room, and yet Loki was still conscious and able to talk and not just a meatbag.
Like, how?
And yet these people, these random ass fucking humanoid, human, alien, whatever they are, people are able to beat the shit out of him and make him feel pain. Like, what?
It's not even he didn't even get his ass beat. It wasn't even he got his ass beat by less than he got an extra. You got the shit beat out of you by an extra.
Yeah. You're telling me Dom from Fast and the Furious can fight 30 people at one time and pull down a concrete ceiling, and then Loki, who takes on the Hulk.
Listen. Loki. It's a huge talking point with Loki, but he doesn't have family, so. Let's be real. That might be why.
It just doesn't make sense. It's one of those things that's make it make sense. Because one, I mean, they never should have been in a position where they were having to fight anybody. She can enchant people. He can bend reality. He has magic. It doesn't make sense. He can
create any item he wants.
Yes.
It's not a magical item. He can create.
Why don't you create a ticket? It's really that simple, folks.
Right!
The creation magic thing, I have an issue with that on a later episode.
Yeah, we'll dive into that. With that said, Genesee, what were your thoughts on episode 3?
I have big feelings on episode 3. Okay, so obviously this was the bisexual episode. And last time I was on, I was like, why won't they just nut up and make a queer character? It's so easy. Mm-hmm. And then they did it, and I was like, oh, Disney, Marvel, why can't you do one thing right? Why can't you do one thing? And here's the problem I have. So I heard about it before, and I did pretty good at avoiding spoilers for this one, but my sister-in-law was like, Genesee, by Loki, and I was like, wait, what? And so we sat there in my in-laws' living room watching it, and which is unique because they don't watch Loki, so they're watching episode 3, having absolutely no idea what's going on. And the actual part where he comes out is fine, right? I kind of like the casual, oh yeah, I do it both, that's fine. It doesn't have to be a whole huge, well, you see, I was evaluating my past experiences with attraction, and I have come to the conclusion that I identify as a bisexual. It doesn't have to be that. I'm fine with the, oh yeah, I both. I've had boyfriends and girlfriends, both. The problem I have is the underlying issue of villainizing a gay character. Disney did it in Beauty and the Beast. Their first gay character was played by the Broadway dude who's phenomenal, and he's very fun. But he was a villain. He was a villain, and they made making his character gay was actually really creepy. He was kind of predatory to his best friend. It wasn't a cute look. And then they come out with Loki, who is a villain. And I get that in this show he's not a villain, and he kind of does the both thing. Plays both sides of being a villain and a hero as
On
well.
multitudes, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, multitudes. But it is very frustrating that the one time that they're finally like, hey, we're giving you a canon LGBTQ character is Loki. That's very frustrating. As like a bisexual person, that is, there's a subtext in there that is saying that bisexual people are villains, right? And that's
May
just.
I ask a question about that?
Yes, please do.
Do you feel like that was a subconscious or a conscious mistake on the studio's part of that?
In general, I would tend to assume that that is an unconscious mistake. That has to deal with like generations and generations of propaganda, basically, that criminalizes and vilifies queer people. So generally, like if it was just any person off of the street, if someone said something to me, like, I mean, I've talked about it before on here. We get it all my fiance and I get it all the time. Little things that are like, it's not really fully on that person, when it's a bigger thing than, if you're being directly homophobic to me, then yeah, stop being an asshole. Right. But if it's just
Makes sense.
just little like subliminal things like that, or microaggressions or whatever you want to call it, it's kind of like, I get that we're dealing with a much larger societal issue here, that is hard for me to really hold you accountable to that, because you're working with the tools that you're given. And until you're given different tools, I get that you can't do everything perfect, and that's okay. Yeah.
Right.
The problem I have with Disney in particular is that Disney has all of the resources and all of the tools available to them. Marvel has all of the resources and all of the tools available to them. They can hire any writer. They can hire any they can make any focus group. There is absolutely no excuse to be making these mistakes in the year of our Lord 2021. There's just question. Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Ernell from GoodKraken.com.
So my panel on bisexuality.
I love it. I'm here for it. I bought 2 tickets. It's great. Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Of course, that's why we have you here. We like to have these conversations. My question for you in this situation is: would you say more so that this is bittersweet because of it? Because obviously the representation is good, but the way that they handled the representation is obviously sort of a double-edged sword here. So, like, would you say that it is still, like, because we talk about this all the time as marginalized groups, right? The representation is important, and how we get that representation sometimes is not as good as we would like it to be, but we're still happy about the representation in a weird way. I don't know where you sit on that when it came to this situation here.
This situation specifically, because obviously that's a huge issue and it's different in every case. So this situation specifically, I feel more bitter about it than anything else, if I'm being honest. Okay. I really do. And here's why. We talk a lot in terms of queer representation, in terms of tokenizing, right? And tokenizing isn't great. We don't like it. This felt, at first level, it felt like a tokenizing of bi identity. While I don't hate I do it both. I do women and men. That is a token thing, right? That's not really opening a dialogue. That's also, he's in the process of flirting with someone who is being presented as a cisgender woman. Now, I fully believe that you are bisexual no matter who you are with. I think that's a really important thing to maintain.
For sure.
But Marvel is not a bi person. They are not a bi community. And so Marvel, who has upheld a very heterosexual norm, is introducing a character that they're having as bi as they're putting him in a very straight relationship. So it feels very tokenizing to me. It feels very non-authentic to a bisexual identity, especially because Loki would be a wonderful character to make bi. I mean, in the comics, Loki is a gender fluid character. Like, there are so many incredible things you could do with Loki, and they're not doing it.
So, like, and like, talking on that part of, like, between the comics and the movies, it's definitely, like, it's, to me, like, from my perspective, again, like, I'm straight as they can be. You can talk shit to me as much as you want. It's all good. But you know what I mean. But like, the MCU, definitely hetero base, but the comics are very, very like everything inclusive, is what I know. There's a lot of characters then there that they could bring in to the MCU. They just haven't yet.
Yeah.
They just don't. Yeah. And that is why I feel bitter about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because even though like the MCU is owned by Disney, Marvel Comics is still Marvel Comics, so they have a little bit more say in their own like IPs.
Sorry, Genesee, continue.
I would agree. I think it's definitely a Disney thing. And I also like what Devin was saying. That's why I feel so bitter about it, because they have endless possibilities. There's no excuse for them to have approached introducing a bi character like this. I also think a good example is Deadpool. Deadpool is a bisexual character. Yeah, pansexual character. And I believe they introduced that in the movies.
Kind of, but they also do it in a way that's very still hetero passing, so it's like, because sure, like he lets his girlfriend peg him during the movie, great, but that's kind of like really the only extension into that conversation they have, and even that is not even like something that is strictly there, and they just only sort of loosely talk about it. Now granted, that wasn't Disney at the time, that was a different situation, so it's a question of
and it's not relevant. MCU.
Yes,
it's also not MCU.
Well, it is now.
The point,
but
it is now.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't at the time.
Yeah.
Something that I think is a key difference in how they approach Deadpool and Loki, because I think your criticism is 110% valid, and I totally agree with that. Something that is very different to Deadpool is that he is written like a queer character. Like his humor, the way, and like part of that is just the Deadpool comics. He breaks the fourth wall. How many walls?
Fourth wall.
Fourth wall.
Yeah.
He breaks the fourth wall, and he has that witty dialogue and all of that banter. He's also allowed to be R-rated. And I'm not saying that all LGBTQ people are R-rated, but the people I hang out with most certainly are. And
okay. I see you. Anyways, with that said, though, I want you to continue on with your thoughts with the episode. It's interesting. I'm glad you got a chance to speak on this, because it's interesting from my perspective, because you're kind of one of the only people I've heard have this sort of take on this happening. For the most part, I've seen like a lot of the gay community be very, very stoked about this announcement, getting sort of a connection towards Loki now that is much deeper than just being a cool MCU character. It's interesting hearing your take on this. Continue on with your thoughts on the episode, though. I want to hear what you have to say on the rest.
Definitely. And thank you for letting me go on my rant, because I've been upset.
It's okay. That's why we're here.
So there was that. And then the other big thing, so many big things happened this episode, which is, I think, part of it. I totally agree. The Guardians of the Galaxy, like, vibe of it was very cool. Love those movies. So having that and, like, the very, like, intergalactic vibe being brought to this, kind of breaking that, like, very public administration vibe that we got in other episodes was very cool. And then you have the moment between Loki and Sylvie. And so because I'm just out here with my hot takes and starting fights today, I am not a fan. I'm not a fan of the whole relationship couple thing. I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
I'm not a shipper. I'm not on board.
I'm actually with you. I'm with you on that, because like to me, and I know that they're variants of each other, but I don't know why I just get this feeling like I'm watching a brother kiss their sister.
Same. I had this exact conversation as we were watching the episode in my like in-laws living room, and I was like, okay, so you have to like keep in mind, I was like kind of explaining it to them, but also asking a question. I was like, so I know they're the same person and they're not related, but it feels incestuous. And then my brother-in-law goes, well, it's really just like jacking yourself off, right?
That's not an improvement.
That didn't help.
Oh my Lanta.
Oh my God. Jose in the chat, how you doing, man? I don't know. I'll get to my thoughts after. You continue, Genesee. You continue.
No, I'm just thinking thinking after episode 3, that's all I could think every time was like, they're just jacking themselves off. Like, but then also I kind of like that. That feels so true to the Loki character, right? Because he is a narcissist.
I wouldn't treat me like that.
And then and also like in episode 3 I was kind of like, oh well, maybe they'll like make more of a distinction that these are like separate people and they're not the same. But then they kept calling each other. They were like, oh well, you're me and I'm you and that's President me, and I'm like, oh okay. So
Yeah.
This is probably the best part of this conversation right here. This is great. This is fucking great. Garrick, what were your thoughts? Actually, sorry, Genesee, did you have any more thoughts on this episode?
Those are my closing thoughts on episode 3. Those are the biggest thoughts I had the whole season.
Cool. Garrick, hit us with your thoughts on Lamentus.
I actually really, really enjoyed this episode. I also kind of got the Guardians of the Galaxy vibes. I felt like it was more so because of the color palette they used in the episode.
Yeah, that retro pink and blue. Yeah, dude.
But I really liked how the episode structurally kind of played out like a road trip comedy from hell.
Yeah, for sure.
Like they had it kind of had like the same touching points in like the way that like the episode progressed. It's like I was still really bothered by the Loki fighting thing. It really bugged me, especially like when he like kicked so much ass and like in the like Dark World, and I felt like he was like in tech. What's that word? Intellectually less of a slouch in Ragnarok. Like, I feel like they just kind of made him just not quite as, like... They just made him a little less Loki for the TV series.
He's far less cunning in these episodes.
That's what I was trying to... Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's what I was, like... I felt like in Ragnarok and, like, in his previous showings, he was just more cunning. And, like... And maybe he was portrayed this way because they were trying to give a sense of, like, omnipotence to the TVA. So it made so maybe it wasn't that he was less dull, it's just the TVA had so much more power than him that he seemed that way by comparison. But it just, I don't know, it rubbed me the wrong way. That was like my biggest like bitch about the episode, aside from like the whole relationship thing.
Genesee, you look like you're gonna jump in. What do you got?
I am. I think that is a really interesting, because you have the whole like, Infinity Stones are garbage. So obviously, in comparison to that isn't something I thought about before. So I like that Loki's power is just so much smaller. But something that I think, and I've said it and I'll say it for the rest of the episode. Loki's character doesn't make sense in this show. He just helped aliens invade Earth and killed Agent Coulson. This man doesn't make sense. This is not the same Loki we were supposed to have just seen a few hours ago, right? And I think
he literally stole the Tesseract for his own well-being because he knew he was screwed.
Right. Right.
That's the whole basis for the series.
But then he turns around and he's like, oh, I'm making allies, and do you trust me? I trust you. And it's like, nobody should trust anybody here except for Mobius. He's the only man I trust, But like, I think that at the heart of it is that they needed to shift him from being primarily a villain to trying to shift him to be the protagonist. Right.
Yes.
They wanted to garner sympathy with the viewers, which is hard. It is really hard to change someone's character view like that. And I think they did it wrong. I felt like the Loki in this show, if I just look at the Loki in this show, I'm like, man, yeah, he's so sweet. Like, look at him on his knees. I sent the two of you this amazing meme that was like, get you a man that can do both.
Yeah.
It was really good. And it has him on his knees. And that scene was so powerful. Like, he really did. I felt like that Loki was feeling remorse. And I felt like that Loki really did trust Mobius, But the whole time I was waiting for him to do a real backstabbing, right? I was waiting for him to kill Mobius. I was waiting for it because that's who Loki is. That's the Loki we know. And it doesn't make sense.
I see it. Garrett, continue on.
Oh, honestly, like I just like the whole like I was pretty much all good except for like the train fight scene really bothered me. Like that's kind of what I was saying. Like I had an issue with that. Like, and I feel like because they moved him from the silver screen to the TV screen, the power scaling was necessary for like budget consumption because obviously like less visual effects, et cetera, et cetera. And I understand that. I just felt like they could have like the scaling was just a little bit off. Like I don't feel like they used the scaling of Loki's power against the TVA appropriately because he was weak against people that weren't involved with the TVA, like the guards on the train on Lamentus, et cetera, which is where I had an issue with like his power balance.
Because the TVA would have made sense, right? That would have
because like they're supposed to be like this big omnipotent, you know, basically alphabet people.
Yeah.
And so like I got that he struggled against them and like the way they set that up. But whenever he was fighting someone that wasn't you know, that wasn't TVA or a couple of other characters, you know, later on in the series, like I was like he should have won that outright. Like especially that train scene. I felt like that was like and I don't know. I guess he was drunk, but like it still seemed a stretch to me that like that was like their pass off for why they were getting like their asses handed to them. And then like just with the moment they had near the end of the episode, I literally like, and I'm just gonna ruin that moment even further for the fans because like mine was pretty much just as bad. You guys have all seen The Silence of the Lambs, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well basically like the scene where he's just like, "Would you fuck me? I fuck me." That was immediately what I thought. I was like, he literally just told that to himself. And he was just like, "I'm on board for this." And like that was just episode 2. I was just like, all right, that's where he went, huh? He was just like, I am going to have sex with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
And
well,
like the Nexus level event.
It was just the weirdest point of tension in the whole series, I felt like.
So what we're saying is Loki got a boner and then it created a branch.
Right?
yeah.
Yes.
That's
Right?
exactly it.
Loki
exactly it,
thinking about being in love with himself and having sex with himself. It could end worlds.
That's pretty out there.
Yeah. I don't know. So my thoughts really on this episode, and I'm sure like the reason we spent most of our time on this episode so far is because this is kind of the episode that uses itself to sort of change direction of what's going on in this show on a bigger scale, right? Because now it's not so much just about trying to figure out what's the TVA, it's figuring out what's going on with Loki. This is more of a personal episode for him, and his relationship with Sylvie is also the episode where we find out that the TVA's employees are all just variants. And I think that's an important thing to point out here, is because that was a big turn in what this show was about, and kind of discerning the difference between the first 2 episodes that we saw going into the second half of the series. I don't know if I'm in the same boat as you guys as getting the weird incestual vibes. Because for me, in my mind, it was like, I never perceived the Loki variants being themselves. I always perceived them as being different people from like same backgrounds. So it was like, yeah, like they were like different versions of themselves, but it's like, if that was the intent that they were wanting, they would have just done 28 different Tom Hiddlestons. Instead, we only got a few of them. So it's like, there is a different variety of different like Lokis that we have that are, granted, insanely different from one another, you know, like a bunch of different ones. Like, it's not like, you know, Loki's going around fucking the alligator, you know what I mean? Like he's not like, there was
that's true.
So it's like I never got the implications that their relationship with each other was weird because of that. My issue that I had with those two is like, I was weirded out about their relationship because they just did not have chemistry with each other. And like whatever chemistry that they did have with each other was just so vehemently weird because of the dialogue that they were having with each other, because it was so halfway like, you're teaching me about myself, but then the other half of it was innuendic, whereas like, kind of just this weird horny tension that they had the entire time. And oh, hey Genesee, you're back. I was just mentioning I was talking about fucking alligators. It's
I go to the bathroom for 2 minutes.
Yeah, you missed it. I
all
know.
hell breaks loose.
You can't leave us unsupervised.
Yeah, that's what happens when you leave us. You leave the mics to play. No,
Are we talking like about alligators in general, or specifically the Loki alligator?
Loki alligator and Sylvie.
Okay.
No, I mean
it's basically the same thing, right?
Right. Well, to you guys, it's not to me. That's the point that I made.
I understand your point of view on that, though, Ernell. Like, so you're basically saying you felt like the reason there was that initial attraction was because their backgrounds felt them were so similar that they that's what drew them together.
That's the first thing that comes to my mind when it comes to so like because I never perceived the variance as like it's you in a different timeline. I perceived it as it's you in a different universe, so it means it's inherently not necessarily you. So it's
true.
Which is why we had things like a female Loki, like we had a young dark-haired Loki that killed Thor. We had a black Loki. We had a fucking Mongolian Loki and that group of Lokis later on that were behind President Loki. Like we had tons of different variations of Loki that were not obviously Loki. So it's like, it's interesting that I just never really got that. But most of my issue with them was just they just didn't have chemistry. They had a really weird chemistry that was half like you're here to be teaching me things and you're halfway here for just me to be horny with. And it was just a weird dynamic for most of the time because he had moments that were kind of cute and then the cuteness would be ruined by some weird fucking thing that one of them would say, and then like Sylvie's still half jaded and Loki's still half jaded, and that sort of just did not click well together for me. They did have some moments that were cute though, and I can give them that. I can see what they're going for. I guess what I'm saying is that it's cute to masturbate with yourself. And that's the end of the show. We're just gonna end here. That's Anyways, the last thing I want to talk about on this episode is the. I agree with everything you guys said about his power scaling and stuff. The one thing I want to point out was how disappointed I was with the single pan shot they did at the end of the episode, where it was supposed to look like the cameraman was following them throughout this entire chaotic explosions and shit happening, because it looked like they were trying to do something really, really cool and just failed to do so. They failed
the cityscape scene when they were like traversing it towards the end.
They were trying to get
going to the
space shuttle. Yeah, and they were fighting a bunch of people and the camera was following them. But it wasn't actually one pan shot. It was multiple shots that were strewn together with weird transitions to make it look like one pan shot. And the part that took me out of it was that Tom Hiddleston is not an action star. So it just kind of looked like they were filming them running around in circles. And like we're just making things shake to make it look like things were happening. And that was that part for me. I was like, I saw it starting, and within like 10 seconds, I was like, yo, this is gonna be hype. And then within 2 seconds later, I was like, this is not hype. This is not good. They're trying to do something that is so far beyond what their abilities are to do here. And that part was probably the part that I was most disappointed by. Everything else was awesome, though. I want to kind of glimpse over the next 2 episodes, because I feel like the next 2 episodes aren't completely as important as the final episode here. So the next episode, we have the Nexus event, and this is when we have them get finally captured, right? And they get taken back to the TVA, and we get the explanation of what actually happened with Sylvie, and as well as Loki getting stuck in the time loop with Sif getting punched in the face multiple times. And then obviously we have the situation of Mobius getting pruned and Loki getting pruned. Devin, what were your thoughts on episode 4?
That episode was just kind of an episode to me, but when I first saw Mobius get pruned, though, I was really upset.
My heart
I
was
didn't know
breaking, man.
I didn't know where it was going. But then at the end of the episode, when Loki got pruned, then I was like, oh, maybe Mobius isn't dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was like my realization right there.
Plot armor.
The timekeepers, of course, when Sylvie threw her sword and it was revealed to be a bunch of giant lizard Chuck E. Cheese animatronic robots.
Yeah.
It just confirmed my whole suspicion the whole long. I was like, Kang or some variant of Kang is behind all of this. It was straight up. That's when I knew it 100% that it was at that, because I was having that discussion with you, Ernell, where we were trying to make predictions about who is behind this, and I was like, it has to be Kang in some way or another, because going back to a theory I have, we have Kang and Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania confirmed.
Yes,
I think the TVA is based in the quantum realm. And the reason why I think that is in Avengers Endgame, you see a city very briefly in the background while they're traveling through the quantum realm. And then also
Didn't catch that.
I didn't either.
When they open the portal through the Alioth, it has the same color scape that the quantum realm does at the end of time. So
wow.
So when you saw the city, and was this an Endgame?
Yes.
When they jump? Okay, I'm gonna have to go back and check that.
Me too.
No, but like, so I had my suspicions that Kang or some form of Kang was going to be at the end of the TVA, and obviously the timekeepers being taken out, that kind of confirmed it for me personally.
For sure.
So that's what that episode really did for me.
Okay, Genesee, what were your thoughts on episode 4?
Okay, are we doing like 4 and 5 in like one swoop, or just 4?
We'll do 4, and then we'll kind of do 5 and 6 in one swoop, because I think those kind of coincide with one another.
Yeah.
I don't have many big opinions on 4, honestly. Until you gave the rundown, I totally forgot what happened in episode 4. I was looking at it. I have like Disney Plus up here. I was like, episode 4 question mark. But I did really love. I love Lady Sif, and we were just watching Thor last night, the first Thor, and I was like, Lady Sif has really been out here like being underrepresented. I'm done.
Yeah.
Marvel, I'm done with your shit. Give me a Lady Sif and Valkyrie movie. Nothing else. Fuck these men. Like, sorry guys, I know that you're all men here. But fuck these
men suck. Men suck. We fucking suck. All right, let's be real.
You're really out here giving me a whole series on Loki when Lady Sif and Valkyrie are just sitting there doing nothing? Really?
What were you
saying?
I just hope they actually bring her back for the next Thor movie.
She's casted
really
for
bad.
it. She's casted.
Is she really?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
They're casted for it. Her and the remaining of the 3, whatever the fuck they're called. I can't remember. Genesee, continue.
I love her. She's the only thought I have on episode 4, to be honest. Her punching Loki over and over again. I was like, good for you, honey. And also that actress. Did you guys watch Kyle XY?
No.
Anybody?
No.
I know of it, never saw it.
Yeah.
It's terrible, but in like a good way. It didn't age very well. It was like an ABC family show that like got cut like mid season 2. It was very confusing. But she was on that, and I love the glow up from her. Like, she really went from like this weird like I don't have a belly button teenager like sci-fi show to like Lady Sif. And I love her. And that's my only opinion on episode 4.
All right, Garrick, your thoughts on episode 4, my friend?
I thought Kid Loki was Evan Peters.
That's episode 5.
That's episode 5.
Episode 5.
Is it? Yeah, episode 4.
That tells you how much I remember about episode 4.
Episode 4 is where
that one seems to be the episode that was forgotten. I don't remember a ton about it. I just remember. I initially thought that I was kind of just like, there's the timekeepers were just going to be a bunch of BS. Like, I had a pretty good inkling that
I'm sure we all did.
There were no timekeepers. I'm sure, definitely wasn't alone there. I was I think I was with everybody else where I was just kind of very initially shocked with Mobius's pruning. I was just like, you just did Owen Wilson so dirty.
Yeah, dude.
Yep, that's what I thought.
I was just like, come on, man. He just provided like probably the best character in this series at the moment, like if in my opinion. But like the second they pruned him, my wife just turned and looked at me and she was just like, Loki's getting pruned at the end of the episode. Like just deadpan. Like she's definitely, my wife's a frequent predictor and she's very good at it. But yeah, she was just like, he's getting pruned. And I was just like, there's no way. I was like, nope, he's like, that's not happening. Mobius is gone. They did Owen Wilson dirty. And then the second, like he got pruned. She was just like, I told you. And I was just like, that just means Mobius isn't dead and this episode just redeemed itself, even if marginally.
This is so funny because this was also one of my favorite episodes and you guys completely just forgot about it. Like I thought this episode was fucking rad, dude. Like even just looking at the light synopsis, like seeing how like them putting Loki through that time loop was a moment for Loki to finally like be forced to come to terms with the fact that he's an asshole. And it was like an over and over and over and over again thing where he had to find a way to get out of that situation. And the only way to get out of that situation was to just fucking admit that he's been fucking up. Just admit that you're an asshole. This is why you're an asshole. And the only way you're going to get out of this situation is if you find comfort in finding a way to admit that you're an asshole over and over again. Which is why it was an interesting thing for him to go into. And I felt super like just attached to that scenario of him having to do that over and over again until he finally fucking figured it out. And then by the time he did figure it out, it just so happened that Mobius came in to get him out because he had sold Mobius on the idea like, hey, something's not fucking right here. You all have been lied to. And which is another big thing in this episode that I loved was like him finally dropping that bomb on Mobius. And then we get the wild fucking scene where Mobius and Renslayer are talking to each other and he's trying to get more information about this hunter that they pruned because she found out that they were just variants. Like there's so many things that happen in this episode and you guys just like aren't giving it the love it fucking deserves.
I love that. I also have a comment specifically about what you were saying about like the magnitude of him being put through the time loop, because that was something for me. I obviously loved Lady Sif, so I enjoyed that a lot. I do have an issue though, because like that would have been a point where it was like, yes, obviously there was a lot of emotion on his end and that seemed very poignant. At the same time, that was what makes you feel bad about yourself. Like you cut off her hair.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they could have put him in a time loop where he finds out over and over again that he's the reason his mom died. Yeah. That was an option.
Yes.
Well, I think
they didn't do that.
I think they kind of encounter that though. They touched on that a little bit because in the scene where they show that his mom dies in the future from where he is at that point was sort of that weight that he needed, because if you remember that first episode, he's like tearing up.
He did replay it and he was
so he and that's what pushes him into wanting to work with Mobius. In this scenario, it's like it feels like there was a lot of back energy put into getting him to this point, and then this was kind of just the last thing he needed to kind of put him in the spot of like, okay, I need to figure my fucking life out because I want to be more than what I am. And that's why like by the end of this episode, he's talking to Mobius about it. Like, you know, Mobius is like, if you want to do more, you can do more. Like, you don't have to be what you want. You can be anything you fucking want to be. You know, like, you don't have to be a villain. You can be the hero. And they have that moment. They get out. Mobius gets fucking pruned. Blah, 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 blah. Showdown with the fucking the timekeepers again. I'm sure we can all like relate that we all kind of sort of saw this fucking outcome coming. The battle was tight, all that good stuff. I felt Sylvie was a little like non-reactive to Loki getting pruned. That kind of bothered me. But he got pruned right before her eyes as he was about to say basically I love you, and he gets pruned and she's just like, oh, fuck you. And they keeps like fighting.
Especially given the context of the previous episode.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
I will say this: following up that moment when she grabs Judge Renslayer, the emotion that she portrayed in the "you're going to tell me everything,"
Yeah.
like what it seemed like
Yeah.
a way of her trying to bring down her anger that she actually had from watching that happen, because she was also still so focused on her mission for revenge at the same time.
Yeah,
that's-
she
but
tried
you
to
could
mask
tell-
her reaction.
Exactly, but you could tell that it did affect her in some way, whether or not it was portrayed fully like how somebody like any of us would, you know.
I see you. I
But
see you.
but I think it was just part of her character in the sense of where she's so driven by revenge, she's trying to, you know,
I see.
finish what she started.
Genesee, you look like you're gonna
I
jump in
felt
there.
the same. I felt the same. And it's because that, to me, felt like the most low-key thing any Loki did this season. You know, is just I'm not going to have emotion. I'm going to kill you unless you tell me what I need. And with, like, underneath that, it being pretty clear that she is upset about Loki, but, like, she's not going to show it.
Right.
Right?
For sure.
Yeah, not to a full extent, but like
No.
I think without her like really saying it, if you rewatch it, because I watched these episodes 2 or 3 times each time, you see it kind of more so with her eyes more than like, you know,
Right.
if that makes any sense.
Right. So now I want to move into episodes 5 and 6. So sort of combine our overall thoughts because they kind of act as like a whole third act of this entire series here. So Sylvie prunes herself. They all get sent to this weird void where they all have to come to terms with the fact that Loki's all over the multiverse were built to survive. And they mentioned that earlier in the show, that Loki is just built to survive. And we run into a variety of Lokis that have just been surviving in the midst of Goliath, the great fucking skeleton cloud monster out there just destroying shit. We'll kind of we'll do all of it, right? And so they meet the Lokis. We get the introduction to Alligator Lokis, which is single one of the best fucking things in this fucking show. Alligator Loki is my fucking passion. I will protect him with all my fucking life. We run into President Loki and a variety of other Lokis. They all are turning their backs on each other. We even get old Loki, who is years and years and years down the line after some things going wrong in his life. And then we move into President Loki getting his hand bitten off. Of course, we didn't talk about that. Sylvie and Mobius come back with a plan to enchant Goliath and make their way into the giant castle that is within it. And then the showdown, obviously, meeting Immortus, aka He Who Remains, aka Kinda King. Let's talk about it, Devin. What were your thoughts on the entire final jump of this show?
So for the first half of my thoughts on this, episode 5 was probably the most fun episode we had.
I can see, yeah.
Mhm.
Like,
Why is there an alligator here?
yeah. Will someone please tell me what's going on? I loved it. I loved it. You know, for me, the biggest thing, the big exciting thing off the bat, first 5 seconds, hit Loki. We're getting Young Avengers. Well, I know we say this every time they introduce a character, but we're getting it. We are 100% getting it, and I can't wait to see that implemented. Yeah. It's like we got Kate Bishop coming up in the Hawkeye series too. You know, I'm excited.
Young Patriot from Falcon and Winter Soldier.
We'll get into
we'll get into that later.
Yeah,
future, but like I'm just going over my thoughts. As soon as I saw that, I was like, Young Avengers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but moving on, I loved classic Loki. I love classic Loki so much.
Yeah.
He just like the way he was grounded, the way that he was kind of leading the pack, but he was saying Kid Loki is the ruler of the land, but at the same time, classic Loki was really calling all the shots, you know?
Well, and also too, getting Richard Grant back into a character for something is fucking awesome, because I haven't seen him in anything in like fucking 5 years, basically. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, and so it was just it was a fun episode. That the point when all the Lokis are all in the same room and they're all trying to talk about who's going to be the ruler and everything. And then Alligator Loki is like, "Shut the fuck up! I'm tired of your shit," and just bites his hand off.
And his scream when his hand gets bitten off is so great.
It's so good. But besides that, my heart when Mobius was driving that little pizza delivery car with the little slice of pizza just doink 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 doink.
Yeah.
That was great to see. We saw more. I think we saw the most emotion between Loki and Sylvie at that part when they were sitting down and they had the fire in the little like broken down house.
The blanket puddle.
Yeah, he's like, here's some blanket.
You cold? I'll make you feel better.
You cold? Oh my gosh.
Some blanket. I got some.
We're sitting at the football field at high school.
You want some blanket? I got some blanket for you.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, God.
Her response was perfect though. She's like, "What is this? A sheet?"
Yeah. She's like, it's a blanket, and she's like, "This isn't a blanket."
Yeah, I love it. Continue to.
But yeah, and the Eliath too. I'm skipping ahead to the Eliath, the enchanting part, and how Loki learns how to do enchantment by channeling Sylvie through him.
Yeah.
Because he did not have that power before, and he had to discover that in order to get to what they were. At this point, too, they didn't know that there was a castle. They just had a huge feeling that the Eliath was a portal, to the other side, to wherever what was controlling it. So they didn't know that aspect yet. It was sad to see classic Loki just, disintegrate to nothing.
Hey, he was a badass, though, putting out the illusion of all of Asgard.
He went out with glorious purpose.
Yeah, dude, it was great. That was fucking rad.
To him, he talked about in that episode how he had such a lonely life and how depressed he was of it. And when he got picked up by the TVA when he finally found out that he just wanted to be around people. That's it. He just wanted to be with people, and then that was a bad thing to the TVA. Right. So to him, that moment was his purpose in his life, to get them to where they needed to go, and watching him cry while he was doing it, it was just good. It was just such a good character in the 45 minutes we got him. Now, moving on to episode 6. How about that intro, guys?
Oh, the dope intro theme, dude.
Yeah.
Or not even the theme, like technically just the whole intro, right? Like the random Marvel quotes.
Well, it starts with the Marvel quotes while they're doing the zoom out of Marvel Studios, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as the episode starts, it's moving through the different multiverses.
And it's also adding on like historical quotes too, that were mixed in there to sort of place it into an actual historical timeline. So dope. Yeah. So fucking dope.
Yeah. As soon as the episode started and it showed them looking at the castle with the timeline looping, that perfect little loop around that castle, and just the on look, I was just like, okay, this is getting good.
Yep. Continue.
Yep. Now, so they get inside the castle. They introduce He Who Remains. It's the only way that they refer to him. Is it me, or did they kind of like make him act like a little bit of like a semi-crackpot jester style type of person?
I loved every single bit of it, dude.
100%.
Yeah. I don't know why. I just pictured like a way more staturous, like elevated, like being style, like persona.
May I?
Yeah, absolutely.
So for me, I loved that they did this take, because that would have been the cliche. If they would have done the stoic, masterful. Like, it would have been just another version of 3 other characters we've already got in the MCU. Them doing this version of Jonathan Majors, of Kang, of Immortus, of He Who Remains, what have you, them giving us this variant of Kang worked out, because this guy has been in this place by himself since the beginning of time. Of course he's going to be out of his fucking mind, right?
Yeah.
Like, this guy, he's so weird and jumpy and goofy, but he's also confident in what he's doing. Like, they're saying, like, we'll beat your ass. He's like, no, you won't. Like, it's like this, the way he handles all of it, I loved every single bit of it. Continue though. Sorry.
Yeah. And again, it wasn't a bad thing to me. It's just not what I expected.
For sure.
But him being a variant of Kang is what I expected.
Yes.
And
yes.
I firmly believe the quantum realm is the answer between multiverse jumping and timeline jumping, obviously, because they already showed it's the timeline jumping. Now we have an altercation between Loki and Sylvie.
Yes.
So this was kind of important to me, because this is the moment where Loki is thinking about everybody but himself, and Sylvie is thinking about only herself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Granted, she's not wrong. He is somewhat of a villain, but it was definitely like a lesser of two evils type of scenario, wasn't it?
It's
like
an extremely dynamic confrontation that they're having. Extremely dynamic. There's a lot of nuance here. I'll go deep into it later, but I see where you're coming from though.
Yeah, and so Loki is just trying to figure things out. He wants to do good. He's seen the ways that he's hurt people. He's seen the ways that he has been hurt. He sees the way that his actions affects other people who just know him because of how selfish he's been and only being wanting to do one thing or causing chaos because he has control in chaos. And he just wants to do honest to God good things. And he just trying to level with Sylvie and talk to her. And then that kiss happens.
Weird.
Which I did not like.
Jerking yourself off. Yeah, got you. I got you.
And then he got pushed back through the portal.
Yep.
You probably see
He got edged.
Yeah. You see one of the most probably best like emotional defeated like faces I've ever seen in a character.
Yes.
And then Sylvie kills He Who Remains, and then the timeline goes fucking wild. Like, it went from being a perfect ring to literally just being a scatter of just a spider's web of just chaos.
What were your feelings in that? That's what I want to hear here. What were your feelings on this happening?
It was like the same feeling I had in episode 1. They can do anything.
Yeah.
Nothing before this mattered. Kang, we can see so many different versions of Kang throughout this. Like, every Marvel movie we're getting in Phase 4 could have a different version of Kang.
Yeah. Jonathan Majors is going to be in every single movie for the rest of Phase 4, and it's going to be fucking
there's gonna
awesome.
Be implications.
Yeah, because he's going to be Jonathan Majors playing 18 different characters. It's going to be fucking amazing. But again, we'll get into that later.
Yeah, which is exactly what I was saying. Is I was excited to see Jonathan Majors do this because he is actually a fantastic actor. And the last time I can think of an actor portraying multiple different characters, at least in recent memory,
Eddie Murphy, Dr. Dolittle.
No, I was going to say
Hercules.
James McAvoy. In Split, how he had like the 20 different personalities and stuff like that. Yeah. So I love that aspect in that movie, which is going to make me love this aspect. I'd be interested to see if there'll be multiple versions of Kangs meeting each other, because essentially what we have is the beginning of the multiversal war happening again, right? Yes. Are the Kangs going to be fighting each other? I know
Okay,
Like-
we'll get into this stuff earlier because the last part of the show I want to
Yeah.
do is put our tinfoil hats on. So,
Yeah.
do you have
Okay.
any other? You have any other topical thoughts?
I love the way that the show actually ended, and I was really sad when Loki ran up and he was completely terrified. He was trying to explain everything to Mobius. And then Mobius just goes, "Are you an analyst?" And then he looks over and there's a statue, and it's very obviously Kang the Conqueror.
Yeah.
The same outfit and everything.
Yeah. Genesee, what were your thoughts on 5 and 6? The whole wind down.
So first of all, President Loki. So I had seen stuff on like memes about President Loki on the internet before I watched it because it took me a few days. I was in California at that point. It's been a disaster. Not like a bad one. I've been all over. And I would say that like this is a thing I don't do, but I just haven't been able to travel for a year and a half, and it was like, all right, back to all my old tricks.
Why not?
Right before COVID, I went from Portland to LA to Florida to Cuba to Florida to LA to Portland to Seattle. And then back to Portland. I have a problem.
Okay.
I travel. Okay. I am a travel person. And so basically I'm vaccinated now. I'm following all of the CDC guidelines. I was like, I'm seeing my family. I'm seeing my best friend. We're doing it. And so I've been home for all of like 3 days in like the last month. So, it's at my home. So I was at Disneyland 2 days after this episode came out, episode 5. And that was wild because I was seeing President Loki stuff everywhere and I hadn't watched the episode yet. So I was like, oh, hell yeah, President Loki is going to be like a substantial part of the episode. Like, we're going to get into it. This is going to be so cool. And then I get to the episode and I was like, President Loki wasn't the moment. Alligator Loki was the moment. And like Kid Loki. Before President Loki. I mean, don't get me wrong, Daddy. You know what I mean? Like,
right, for sure.
President Loki was. Woo,
oh, you meant? I thought you were talking about Alligator Loki. I was gonna say, yeah, big retweet, big retweet. That's. I'm gonna fuck that alligator.
No.
And now
we're
all on
being
one.
alligator, boys. Let's go.
Okay, well, Ernell's over there. I'm over on President Loki's
for sure
situation.
I'll take that bullet for us. It's okay. Or Gator. I'll take that Gator for us.
Like that meme I sent you, I was like, both of those, like President Loki and the Loki on his knees, I was like,
yeah.
That's all I needed. That's how I feel about episode 5.
And all of Tumblr needed that moment to happen. 100%.
And that meme specifically, where he's like on his knees versus like
with the neck brace on too. I can see it. I can see like every fanfic got written that day.
That was bi rights.
Yeah.
That was bisexual rights, and I don't even think Marvel tried.
Yeah.
I think that Twitter just did what Twitter does, and Twitter was like,
Kevin
a man
Feige,
on his knees? Give me more.
Kevin Feige was like, fuck!
I can't believe you've done this.
He's like, oh my god, all the fanfic. It's
and it's like, you wanted a bisexual Marvel character, we're giving him to you.
Anyways, continue.
So that's how I feel about that. President Loki was less than Alligator Loki. But also, I do want to make a quick side note. Being at like Avengers Campus, I went to Avengers Campus. That shit was wild.
Yes.
I was a big fan. But being there, like while Loki was coming out, was so cool. They already have like Loki Minnie Mouse ears, and there were so many cool like costumes that people were doing, and that was lit. I had like an hour-long conversation in a line for a ride about everything MCU with this lovely like older couple that was, I don't know how it started, but I was wearing a shirt that said, I can't believe I didn't say this. You guys are gonna love this.
Okay.
Did I send you a picture of my shirt?
No. No, you didn't.
After this, I will.
Okay.
So I was wearing a shirt that had a little embroidered image of Captain America's ass, and it said "America's ass."
So where do we get this shirt? Because I absolutely need that in my life.
Gonna need a link.
Yeah. We're gonna
It's
need a
on
link.
Etsy.
Etsy? Okay,
I'll send
sick.
you a link after this. It's on
Sick,
Etsy.
sick.
So that was like all day. People were like, "Oh my god, I love your shirt," and I was like, "Thank you. I know. I see you." And so we were in line, and they were like, "I love your shirt," and I was like, "Thank you." And they were like, "I can tell you who your favorite character is." And then it just was all downhill. And my dad, who hasn't watched any of the Disney Plus original series, was sitting there not talking for like an hour.
Damn it, Dad.
Because he had no idea what we were talking about. But anywho, so that was a whole moment. Other than that, fuck Fat Kiss. Fuck it. Let it burn in hell. Do you remember? I'm angry.
Okay. Go on.
I'm angry. So we've talked a lot about like why their whole like them shipping them is very frustrating.
Yeah, masturbation. Yeah. Masturbation can be frustrating. Yes, you're right.
I feel like I inadvertently took like an anti-masturbation approach in this. So like
existential
I need to,
masturbation.
clarify that I'm pro masturbation, but I'm not pro this
Right now.
Welcome to the Good Kraken podcast. We talk about existential masturbation and fucking alligators. That's what we do here. Welcome to the show, y'all.
If you were wondering what a Good Kraken and Let's Get Bitchin' crossover event looks like, this is it.
Yeah, this is it. This is it. Yeah.
So, in addition to those issues, I have an issue in that. So, Sylvie in the comic books, one variation of her is that she is supposed, like Loki created her, right? That when after like Asgard moves to Earth and all of that stuff, and they're in Georgia or Kansas or somewhere weird, wherever they are. Yeah. Sylvie has the backstory of like she was from Earth, and then one day she woke up with these powers that she thinks Loki gave to her, and then it's kind of like, oh, maybe Loki created her, and then they're in love, and it's confusing. I was kind of like, because Sylvie, at the very beginning when we first meet her, she gets very sensitive about being called a Loki.
Yes.
That was never addressed. And so I'm sitting here episode 6 waiting for it to be addressed, and it wasn't. And they kiss, and it's very upsetting. And so I think this might be a tinfoil hat situation, so I'll save it.
Okay.
But do you remember when the last, I think it was, episode 9 of Star Wars came out?
Yes.
And there was the Kylo Ren, Rey kiss. And everybody was angry.
Yeah.
Everybody was angry.
Yeah.
I wasn't angry. I was like, oh, hell yeah. Let's get some weird Jedi.
Yeah, I was okay with that.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah, I was for it.
Yeah,
because,
I was for it too.
Because guess what? It's not incest.
It's not incest.
This isn't incest either, you fucking weirdos.
Also, I was like, oh yes, let's have some like weird Jedi, like earth-shattering sex. Let's do it.
Fuck yes, let's go. Let's go.
Right?
And they turned into a ghost.
And then and so I really felt like with this, this is how I imagined everyone else feeling during episode 9. I was like, this is really aggravating. But at the same time, I wouldn't be mad about some weird, like, magic sex shit that, like, causes, I mean, them looking at each other longingly caused a Nexus event. So, like, what is them having sex gonna be like?
I think we have a general consensus.
I think it's gonna be very green.
Yeah, just green everywhere, just green. And then alligator Loki's in the corner masturbating. Classic Loki's like laughing and yelling.
Dude, his arms are like 4 inches long. There's no way he could.
Oh, he can do it. He can do it.
Oh,
he can do it.
No,
there are many ways.
I don't need an example of what that might look like. By the way, I'm good.
Like if a T-Rex can probably do it. I can imagine the alligator.
T-Rex cannot.
Just
It's like,
Well,
we cannot.
That's all you need.
The
It's
T-Rex
your
can like
thoughts. You have
maybe
your
rub
thoughts
its
and your
own
hand
nipples.
Okay.
As a resident queer as a resident queer person,
I'm just
I'm
saying.
going to open a door for all y'all heteros out there. With your hand is not the only way you can masturbate.
There you go. There you go.
Just gonna lay that out there for
You
you.
have
Have
thoughts?
fun
You have
googling
thoughts?
later.
Google searches.
You have
Yeah.
thoughts.
Deal
You have
with it.
graphs.
Garrett's like,
Like, listen, like, you have the right circumstances. You can, like,
Genesee Gabrielle and all affiliated brands take no responsibility for what you may find on Google later at any point after this episode.
and then alligator orgasm. It's that simple.
And
Under the right circumstances, you can make this happen. I'm doing it on my secret lab chair right now. Just alligator hands, okay? And you just rub on something else, okay? This has been a good Kraken example of alligator masturbation. We are derailing the fuck out of this. Genesee, continue.
Okay, I'm crying. This I think is one of your best episodes ever. I'm gonna
arguably.
say
Yes,
it.
yes.
This is incredible.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. This is wonderful.
So now that I inspired that dialogue, that's how I feel. Also, I was not a fan of the ending.
Of 5 or 6? Of 5 or
Devin
6?
is ready to of 6. Of 6.
Okay,
Devin is ready
okay,
to fight me,
cool.
and I'm ready.
Cool.
I'm so excited.
Okay.
Okay, so here's the thing. I felt like at the end, it made sense. It all makes sense. They're setting it up for season 2. It all makes sense. Kang, everything makes sense, right? Where the fuck is Sylvie? She and Mobius are the 2 most interesting characters in the show, and I kind of have to assume that she's dead, right?
no. So her, she's still in that same realm because
Right.
it's yeah.
But-
So, but she's got the tempad
Yeah,
from He Who
it's possible
Remains.
she got out. It's possible she got out.
She can go
But-
wherever she wants because she has the most powerful version
Right.
of the tempad now.
That's-
So,
I
and
don't know.
Mobius made his way back to his TVA dimension.
That's true. I don't know. It was like there were so many things that were left. There was no resolution, I think, is the problem I had with it. Like, I invested all of this time and all of this energy, and we started right back at square one. And
So-
the only
Sorry.
resolution we got was that Loki and Sylvie have major boners for each other and kissed. And that was the resolution I didn't need.
And alligator masturbation.
And also, is alligator Loki okay? Is Kid Loki okay? What's happening? Did the thing get them? Like, what are they okay? I don't know. But you know what I do know? They kissed, and Kane took over, and Mobius doesn't know who he is, and I'm upset.
So,
Good old cliffhangers. Now, what I want to do before Devin goes in here and has the battle of his life here, all right? I want to get Garrick's thoughts on the table. So, Devin, hold on to it just for a second. Woosah, baby. Woosah.
I'm kidding.
Garrett, what were your thoughts on the final act of Loki season 1?
Just would like to state for the record that like episode 5 was definitely my favorite episode.
Uh-huh.
Mostly due to the fact that it really just put to bed the Loki endgame theory that everybody's basically been tossing around since where that like, you know, the movie got released, that basically no, he's not dead, he just made a clone so real of himself. And
Yeah,
that like we got that version of Loki, and it was probably, you know, like I thought it was interesting because like in a sense that's like the truest version of Loki we might have gotten.
Right.
And I really appreciated like the way he was portrayed, and like just it also like I just enjoyed the fact that they were just like, all right, like, are you happy now? Like, we showed what this scenario looks like, and now you guys we can all agree that like like, you know, Loki did in fact get his freaking windpipe crushed by Thanos, and he's no longer in that universe, which doesn't matter anymore anyways.
Right.
Because now he's
Let's
back
just-
in the universe.
Let's just move past it, because now wibbly wobbly timey wimey. And so I
like
was
that.
also just really stoked on the fact that we got introduced to Kid Loki just because Young Avengers. I'm really hyped on that with Devin. And I just thought that that was just seeing the different Lokis and everything they go through. Kind of put his character growth a little bit more into perspective throughout the season. I still had some issues with the pacing, but it made it. I feel like it put it more into made it okay, this maybe it makes sense that he's starting to feel the way he does. I really loved and hated episode 6,
Okay.
for a lot of different reasons.
Okay.
The reason I loved it was Sylvie's betrayal, though, because to me it felt like the most Loki thing a Loki would do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so
Agreed.
and it threw me a great deal at first, because at that point in the series, even though I was frustrated with his character development, I was still kind of I wanted to believe in good Loki, It's just I got this. So it's just you do it, buddy. You stop the universe from ending and stop the multiverse war. Go for it. I want to believe you can turn over a new leaf. And then Sylvie was just psych, I'm gonna do the Loki thing. And I was like, oh, well, that's not what I was expecting, but it was what I was expecting, because that's what Loki would do. And that, so that was my favorite part. I just felt like the way the episode handled itself in a general sense felt very overwhelming, given its implications on how it's going to impact the rest of Phase 4. So, and I understand that a lot of that was probably just because I watched it at home on a TV, not in a theater, so it didn't feel as heavy on me as a watcher. When they finally defeated Thanos, there was or when Thanos finally did his initial snap, I feel like that's gonna be one of the things that Disney's really gonna struggle with their TV series, is giving those series the same sense of purpose that the theatrical showings do, because we can see that they tried to kind of do that with the initial Netflix shows, and they missed a lot of the time, unfortunately, the overall community would probably say. And so I felt like it was just really, really hard. Get your fucking emotes out of here. I just felt like it didn't hit necessarily as hard as it should have in for a finale sense, and the lack of resolution. It was just cool, so we have the multiverse now, and we don't have any sort of speculated release date on a season 2, or when we're gonna see the implications of the multiverse being put into effect. We don't, are we gonna is it gonna just does Shang-Chi is that gonna be multiverse? I'm a little frustrated I didn't get to see how it was initially gonna tie into the rest of the phase. That was my biggest hang up, I think.
Okay. Do you have any other thoughts on this final episode, or
No, that was pretty much it. I keep my turn a little short, so we
for
can
sure?
get our
For
10
sure.
minutes.
Okay. So, my thoughts on this, right? So I'm kind of spread out between all of your guys' opinions on this. There was some stuff in here that I was very oh, really? And then some stuff that I was very, very happy about. So episode 5 wasn't particularly my favorite, but it was really fun. It was probably the most fun episode of the entire season for sure. Alligator Loki masturbating is something that we absolutely need in this universe. But
Yeah,
I think
spoilers.
I think we've talked enough about that, so I'm going to focus more so on episode 6 here. So
Is there ever enough?
no, never. But for the purpose of letting the world have balance, I have to make sure I don't speak too much on Alligator Loki. Just slapping it. You know what I mean? Just straight working the alligator meat. You know what I mean? Just working it. Yes, Devin, Alligator Loki, you're right. Yeah. Anyway, so episode 6 I thought was extremely interesting. And I talked to Devin loosely about this the other day. I felt this episode was very interesting because it was a sort of thought piece on Loki having a conversation between who he is now versus who he used to be. And they give sort of a physical manifestation of this conversation of him having with himself, because he even tells her, I've been where you are. I've been in your shoes. I've felt what you're feeling right now. And that wasn't just an implication of him talking to her. It was him talking to himself, because now they gave us sort of an example of Loki having this sort of dynamic conversation with who he used to be and letting that go and move on to who he wants to be moving forward. And that was sort of an interesting thing that I think happens in this episode that I feel deserves the attention on it, because I feel like outside of the idea that this was important for the greater MCU, as far as Loki and what's happening to him in this series, I think that this part was just really important because of the way that we have all this build up of Loki trying to turn around his life throughout the course of this season. And it's cool to see him finally talk to this version of himself that says, like, I've learned, I figured it out now, and I'm telling you that you do not have to do this. And like Devin mentioned, it is him finally for the first time in this timeline, because in the other timeline, his no longer thinking of himself was him getting choked out by Thanos. And we see, what that happens if he didn't let that happen, thus classic Loki. But him offering himself as a sacrifice to allow Thor to survive by getting choked up by Thanos, that was him giving up himself in the main universe. And in this world, it is him trying to talk himself down from doing something irrational. So yeah, you guys are right. This is a Loki doing the most Loki thing that we've seen the entire season, but it comes at the expense of the story they were trying to tell, I feel. And for me, that sort of like made things fall short on like what this relationship dynamic was between Loki and Sylvie and what they were ultimately trying to build to. However, I think that's going to play off later in the future when they have to face off again at some point in the fucking story between Loki and Sylvie, and having to kind of come to terms like, Sylvie, you fucked up, dude. Like, like this is not fucking okay. Jonathan playing as He Who Remains / Immortus / Kang is one of my favorite things that have ever happened in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. His playing He Who Remains, playing as Immortus, is the goofiest, weirdest shit at first, and it just tones down everything going into the beginning of this episode when it's all creepy and dark with Miss Minutes being super fucking cryptic and fucking awkward, and you're like, oh my god, like, are they gonna face off with some weird shit? And then it's just Jonathan Majors walking out of an elevator eating an apple. I think it was. He was just eating like fruit.
Yeah.
He walked off an elevator. He's like, hey guys. And then for the rest of the episode, he was just like, hey guys. Like, it's just so like matter of factly, and like them using that take on Immortus for us to sort of build into the stuff was fucking amazing. I loved it. I loved every goddamn second that Jonathan Majors is on the screen. And like his interactions with them, him saying, if you think I'm evil, wait until you meet my other variants, was one of the most powerful lines in all of the MCU, because that sets up so much shit of what we're going to see. And we're going to talk about it further here as we go now into our last few minutes of the show. I want us to put our tinfoil hats on and talk about what we think is going to happen because of Loki. Let's keep it brief, keep it to the point. Devin, what do you think is going to happen for the rest of Phase 4 because of Loki?
Well, like I was saying earlier, I think every movie we're about to get is going to have a different variation of Kang. Like I found out earlier, Loki is confirmed in the Multiverse of Madness. So I wonder if Kang the Conqueror's first appearance is going to be in that movie.
I don't think
because
so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I'll get into it when I go.
Yeah, but I mean, we'll probably see him in some way or another in that. I was reading into the history of Kang, and there's so many different variants that have like that nemesis role with different parts of the Avengers, like the Fantastic Four with Rama Tut. And I think that's what we're going to see in the Fantastic Four movie. Instead of seeing a Doctor Doom, we're going to see that. There's also a variation of Kang where he becomes Doctor Doom as well. So, again, it's so hard to think about exactly how they're going to do it, because I can't wrap my mind around that they literally can just do everything, you know?
Yeah.
And it's hard to see which way that they're going to go with it. I know we have the Hawkeye show coming up. I know we have Shang-Chi coming up. I know we got Multiverse of Madness coming up. We got Spider-Man. Like, is Kang going to be in Spider-Man? Like, we already have Electro. We already have Doc Ock. There's been rumors of William Dafoe reprising his role as the Green Goblin. So are they going to add a Kang to the mix too? With it being multiversal, you know, it's so hard to think that they're not going to do that in everything. You know what I mean?
It's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It kind of makes my mind want to explode. I'll be honest. I don't know a whole lot about Kang. This show is what really piqued my interest into Kang. Before this, I was more of a Spider-Man, an X-Men, Marvel. Like, before MCU, I cared more about Spider-Man and X-Men and stuff like that versus the Avengers stand. Like, that was my stuff. So all the Fox movies and Sony movies as I was growing up, I was here for it, you know. So and that's another thing too. We're supposed to be getting mutants as well now. It's I don't know. I feel like a 7-year-old kid in a candy store right now. You know, I just want to see everything. You know,
I feel you.
So, but my biggest theory behind all of this is I think the TVA is based somewhere within the quantum realm. Like I reiterated earlier, we see a city when the Avengers are traveling through the quantum realm in Endgame. When they open the gate through the Alioth, when they enchant it, it has the same color scape and that same kind of wavy, like, metallic look, you know. I'm highly convinced that that's the case, and that's why time moves differently than it would in like other multiverses or realities, however you would say. So
okay, cool. Genesee, what do you think is going to happen in the rest of Phase 4?
So I have one thing that I'm not entirely sure it's a theory. It's kind of more of a question. Are we running under the assumption that Kang is the new Thanos?
Yes.
Like, okay.
I don't think he's a Thanos. For Phase 4, I would look at him more as like how Loki was for the Avengers movie.
No,
the first
so
Avengers.
you're saying that Kang has someone bigger that he's working for?
I wouldn't say he's working for. I was going to say the scale. Like, he is the main villain of this particular phase, because we went through 3 full phases. I think with the multiverse stuff, I think we might be getting more into the realm of... I really want to see Galactus.
I would concur with Galactus, honestly.
Yeah, I think Galactus is going to be the big Thanos event, but I don't think it's going to be like Kang is working for him. I think this is just the steps that they are taking to get to that, because they're making it more bigger and vaster and opening up the universes, bringing in more characters, because Galactus is like the all-powerful being, right? He's the Celestial, you know? So, and we still have to get Adam Warlock, who they introduced at the end of Volume 2 of Guardians of the Galaxy, which plays a big part against Galactus. We also got Fantastic Four coming, which means who's going to play the Silver Surfer, who is also a big part of Galactus. We also have the rumors of Nova coming around too, because the Nova Corps was taken out, and Nova comes after the Nova Corps was destroyed, and the Nova Corps was destroyed in Endgame. So, or Infinity War, I should say. So I think 3 phases from now, we're going to see Galactus. I think he's going to be that Thanos event, personally.
So
okay.
To answer your question, Genesee, it's up for debate. It's up for debate.
Up for debate. So that was my theory, is that King is going to be the big villain in Phase 4. With the caveat that I think we're going to see a lot of variations of King, and I think that they might end up being called a different name, obviously. I mean, literally anything's possible. Like, I could say we're going to see a King Monkey, and like that would probably happen, you know?
King
At
Monkey?
this point.
Is King Monkey gonna masturbate too, or?
That's my theory. Although not the masturbation part, because my tagline, Marvel doesn't have the balls.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, of course.
But Fox does. They showed Deadpool getting pegged.
Of course.
Anyway, so that's the thing. Miss Minutes. I think that I don't know if I actually hypothesize this or I just want this to happen. So I will say I would like to see more of Miss Minutes. I don't think that she's a hologram. Like, I don't think that's her. I think that there is something behind Miss Minutes because she had way too much like charisma and charm and like character points to just be a hologram. Miss Minutes is something, and we have not seen the last of her.
Okay.
Yeah. My big one, though. I think we're going to see something. There is something behind Sylvie and Loki. And I think that's another reason why their relationship bothers me so much. Because I'm really holding on to that part of the first episode, or the second, third episode, wherever we first see Sylvie and she goes, "Do not call me a Loki. I am not a Loki."
Yeah.
I think that there's something there. Like, she had an issue with a Loki. Because technically in the comics, she's not a Loki. She was created by a Loki. And that's kind of gross, right? Like, Loki created something so that he could fuck her. I don't like that. I don't love that. I don't.
Well, Loki
sure.
wasn't always a good guy, so.
Yes, that's true.
Right?
That's true. And I get that would also be like a variant of Loki, not the Loki that we know. He might not even be played by Tom Hiddleston. But like, that to me is like very, because when she said that, my first thought was there's some trauma there. And then getting further into like the comic side of things, I was like, did Loki are we going to get into that? Are we going to get into some sort of like traumatic incident between her and the Loki from her universe? I'm not committing to that prediction. I think it's a possibility. I was very surprised by what Marvel did in WandaVision, so I would not be surprised if moving forward in Phase 4, they do talk more about trauma and those sorts of things, especially with the variant component, because we're seeing a lot more of like really bad variants, right? Or I think we can expect to see that. But I'm hoping that we will get to see more of where Sylvie comes from and how that complexity intertwines with her relationship to other Lokis. Because I think that's there, and I'll be really disappointed if it's not.
For sure. Garrick, what do you think's going to happen for the rest of Phase 4 and beyond?
I think with the introduction of like Kang and variants of Kang and just the kind of the birth of the multiverse, or the rebirth of the multiverse, I guess, in this scenario, I'm really excited to see what villains it's going to bring in, honestly, almost a little bit more so than the heroes. Because I feel like with the way they chose to introduce the multiverse is going to leave open, like, I definitely feel like we're going to get Galactus, like, beyond Phase 4. Like, I feel like he's our next big bad. And that the way it's going to end up tying into, like, say, WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, I think, like, I'm really maybe this is just me being hopeful, but I really want to see Mephisto.
Yes.
And I think the way that the multiverse is going to tie into Wanda's self-discovery of who and what she is going to bring about some really interesting villains. I also really would like to I'm interested to see how, like, if this is going to be how we get Fantastic Four and X-Men brought into the picture. Like, I think this is kind of like their backdoor pilot to reintroducing those Fox-owned like like those Fox-owned properties back to the MCU.
Mm.
So, and I think because of that, like also just kind of to piggyback off of Devin's, like they can do literally anything now, and it's all canon. Oh, we got hands. All right, go ahead, Devin. I saw yours first.
All right. So like on this is just touching on the X-Men thing. Ernell and I were kind of talking about this. Space brain dead earlier. But do you think that they're going to use some of the same cast they used in that First Class reboot? Do you think they might use some of those actors? Because I actually would love it. Because I want to see Michael Fassbender be Magneto. I want to see Michael Fassbender as Magneto again, really bad.
Yes, and that was actually what my hand raise was about, because as soon as you said that, my thought was we already brought Quicksilver into the MCU.
But it wasn't Quicksilver.
Okay, hold on, wait. Tinfoil hat, real quick. So I absolutely love Evan Peters, the tinfoil hat sting on.
Yes.
Getting this out there. I love Evan Peters, and the way they introduced him in WandaVision was not done accidentally. And the fact that we have the multiverse now, there could very well be a version of Quicksilver played by Evan Peters that we could see reintroduced in the MCU.
Okay,
100%.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Here's my deal. I do think it was done intentionally, and I think it was done intentionally to fuck with us. I don't think it's any deeper than that. I really do.
You think it was done in the same way that they did Loki's, hit the Richard Grant's Loki? Do you think that it was kind of a parallel? Like the reason they did it was for similar reasons?
I think it was something that was very just like and then nothing.
Here's what I have to say.
Cruel.
That would be cruel. First of all. Second of all, from a production standpoint, you do not bring someone like Evan Peters in as Quicksilver.
Sure you do.
He will not sign on. That man's publicist? Fuck no. Fuck no.
He has a very, he's got a very strong and growing career. I feel like bringing him into the MCU is a smart... I mean, look at, you got to think Evan Peters is more established than Jonathan Majors. And Jonathan Majors was able to get into the MCU with only a 6 or 7 year career under his belt.
Yeah.
That's impressive. I feel like the potential for Evan Peters to be brought on as a legitimate cast member it's definitely there. I feel like that's definitely there.
Yeah, but
I'm saying it right now.
Richard Grant has more experience than every single person on the Loki cast, and he's got thrown in as a throwaway character. So
but he had a glorious purpose.
Thank you, Devin.
That was
anything is possible.
A really well-placed cameo.
Yeah. Anything is possible. He could not be dead, first of all.
Yeah.
Second of all, I think it's a bit different. I agree with you in that his actor is has a much larger career and all that stuff. Evan Peters is also at the point in his career where it is important to be strategic. And I just don't see that being a throwaway. I also think, so from the production standpoint of things, I think that it's very, very, very possible he is in for it. I also think from story building thinking, I think what happened, I think the conversation was, hey, we need to bring over the X-Men. What if we toss in Evan Peters and see how he does on Twitter? Because Disney is doing more and more and more of that, where I'm watching something and I'm like, you took this from Twitter. Don't lie to me.
So the tough part about that is that, and I know me and Devin mentioned this before on another episode, was that the First Class line of the X-Men don't exist anymore, and that is now canon because of Logan and First Mutants, or whatever the fuck it was called. Last Mutants.
No, they do exist. We're saying it was started after Days of Future Past. So right. Days of Future Past it erased the first X-Men movie, X2 and X3. That's what Days of Future Past did.
It was a glorified retcon.
Okay, yeah. So but that's what I mean though, right? So Days of Future Past happens, okay? And then later on they give us Logan.
First Class. No, First Class is after Days of Future Past. It's after.
I'm talking about Logan. So
yeah,
what I'm trying to say here is Logan at first came out, and our assumption was, okay, this is just a different universe in which the X-Men actually all get killed off. This is a throwaway spin-off thing. We do not have to worry about this. When Last Mutants came out, Last Mutants is the story of all the children that Logan saved. New Mutants, yeah, sorry. All the mutant children that Logan saves at the end of Logan, thus canonizing that storyline, making it not a throwaway story, which means there are no more mutants. Everyone in First Class is now dead. So the question is, where does that apply in the timeline of X-Men in allocation?
I got you right now. I got the answer.
All right.
Guess what? It's the multiverse, bitch. They can pull them from any fucking time.
It's true. It's true.
So
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
I have one last tip.
Yeah, it's your thought. It's your thought, Garrick, and that'll get into my prediction. Genesee.
And after that, I have a mutants comment. After that.
Okay.
All right.
I'll let him finish.
Okay.
My just my last thing, and what I feel like this potentially could bring about / what I want to bring about. I feel like the birth of the multiverse is the only way we are going to get a version of the Black Panther character. Rip Chadwick Boseman, Wakanda forever.
Well,
okay.
Hold on. Like, I don't, before everybody shits on me. What I want to happen is I would very much like to see a universe where Shuri is the Black Panther.
I think that's the plan.
Yes.
I think that's the plan.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah,
and I
think so
100%
too.
agree.
But like, this is just me breathing it into the universe and like wanting to solidify it somewhere.
For sure.
We just need to get it on Twitter because they literally are here. They're here and they're stealing our ideas. But I'm not mad about it because they're doing what we want them to do.
Yeah.
You know.
But that's my last theory.
Okay.
Okay.
Genesee.
Mutants.
Mutant comment. Go ahead.
Mutant comment. We saw in WandaVision, what's her name? Monica Rambeau?
Yeah.
Is a mutant.
Yep.
Mutants are coming to the MCU. This is not a drill, so I am sorry, Ernell, but I have to disagree with you. I don't know how they're going to make it make sense, but as Devin said, nothing has to make sense anymore.
Yeah,
They will pull a rabbit out of a hat and call it the multiverse.
I think they're gonna pull the Dark Phoenix cast. I think because they're established X-Men and they're very young X-Men, so I think they're gonna pull them. It may not be all of them, but I think that's what they're gonna do. James McAvoy as fucking Xavier? Are you kidding me? Like, they're gonna do that. Michael Fassbender as Magneto? Yeah, they're gonna fucking do that.
But that's the only two I would like.
That's
to see.
the only. Thank you, Garrett.
The rest of like
huge Jack man.
Hold on. Okay.
Yeah, they're gonna do that.
Are you assuming that they won't bring back the people who died? Like, what's her face? The blue chick and of course Phoenix.
Mystique.
Yeah.
Mystique and my names are leaving me. The actress who plays
Grey.
the main
Jean
character, Jean Grey.
Yeah.
What's her actress's name though?
The chick from
Sophie
Game of
Turner.
Thrones. Sophie Turner.
Sophie
Turner.
Who
Beautiful
also
human being.
beautiful human being who recently came out as bisexual.
Yes.
God bless. Married to a Joe Bro. Bisexual representation. Okay. Anyway, I would love to see both of them come back, but they're dead.
But
You
guess
know?
what? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I would
Yeah,
love
it
to
kinda
see them
doesn't.
come back.
Because no, Loki established it
Turner?
doesn't matter because Loki died in the MCU and they brought him back for his own TV show and put him back in the rotation in the MCU. So therefore, it just proved it doesn't matter if a character is dead.
Nothing matters anymore.
Here's the deal. Okay, I'm gonna get into my predictions here because there's reasons that I feel the way that I feel. Okay, so two big things that I'm going to mention to start out here. Young Avengers, which is a given.
Yes.
They've obviously been building up to that. That is self-explanatory. But greater scale is Secret War. So Secret War
yes
is very much what they're trying to build into here. And that means that the only person that is going to be involved with what Kang is doing is the Beyonder. And the Beyonder is a celestial being that is trying to get all of humankind basically to fucking fight each other. And that's obviously a phase, 6, 7 sort of ordeal. I don't think we're going to get Galactus until like 7, 8. I think we are way, way, way far away from Galactus, okay?
That's fair.
That's fair. I feel like Galactus is a pinnacle, but I also feel like they're like getting towards it because one movie we totally have not talked about at all that's coming out this November.
Eternal.
Yeah.
Eternals, yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Which is why Beyonder makes sense right now, because Beyonder is also a celestial being. So it makes sense that there's going to be some sort of introduction of Beyonder being in relation to what Kang is doing. What I think they're going to be doing with Kang going forward is that they're going to have some moments where Kang is just present in every piece of MCU content for the rest of Phase 4 and Phase 5. And what that's going to build into is, because here's the deal, the different variants of Kang are not always bad. And we obviously saw
Iron Lad.
Mortis. Iron Lad is a part of Young Avengers, is also a variant of Kang, and actually in the future becomes another Kang the Conqueror. An interesting thing here is that Kang the Conqueror, the original Kang the Conqueror, is said to have been Reed Richards' dad. Fantastic Four, Reed Richards' dad.
I thought he was like a descendant of Reed Richards. So because he's from the 31st century.
It's because Kang the Conqueror revolves in this entire cycle where he isn't on a flat timeline. He's on a time loop. He's in a perpetual thing where different variations of Kang are placed across different variations of different timelines all over the fucking place. And that's why Immortus was trying to explain, like, this is really dangerous because you allow me to travel across all timelines. We will find a way to make another war happen. But what I think they're going to try to do is we're going to have a bunch of throwaway Kangs and one single Kang the Conqueror who's going to be recognized as Mr. Fantastic's dad. And he is going to be the one that kills off every other Kang the Conqueror. And I think he's going to be the one single entity that they end up having to fight later, which turns into them running into the Beyonder. If that makes sense. So I think we're going to get one major Kang the Conqueror, but he's going to be trying to pick off every random Kang that we're running into in all the MCU content in the future. Now, when I say that Kang the Conqueror is going to show up, I do not mean he's going to be a main character. He's going to be in No Way Home, but he's going to be in a post-credit scene. He's going to be in Multiverse of Madness, but he's only going to be in the third act. You know,
like
so
Thanos.
Exactly. They're going to treat him like Thanos, where it's like, oh, they're going to build and build and build. They're going to show a Kang, and then they're going to show Kang the Conqueror come out of a portal, and he's going to stab himself in the fucking neck, and then he's going to fall over, he's going to jump in the corner, and that's it. You know, and it's going to be one little thing like that in every single piece of the rest of Phase 4 until we run into the Fantastic Four, where they talk about Reed Richards' dad, Nathaniel Richards, losing his fucking shit and wanting to travel across time. And now that introduces the Fantastic Four because Reed Richards feels he has an obligation to go fight his dad. And that... go ahead.
I was going to say, you know what's kind of exciting about this? This means that we're probably going to have an African-American Reed Richards.
Yeah, we
Give
sure
it to
would.
me. Give it to me. I want it. I want it. I'd rather
I've
have
actually
that.
been thinking about that a lot since Jonathan Majors was cast. I'm like, is, you know, and not in a bad way. It's just more representation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
now, the beauty, and the last little detail I want to get into is something I loosely talked to Devin about the other day as well. This could potentially canonize What If.
Yep.
Which is rad. Everything that we see in What If
so.
could potentially be canon. Because we don't know who... I don't know if you watched the trailer for What If, Genesee, that they put out last week. No?
I don't think I did.
Okay.
I don't think I did.
So they released a trailer. It's cool looking. But there's some weird cosmic entity that is speaking about what is going on in What If. And I think that cosmic entity is Beyonder. And everything he's talking about is not going to be stories of What If. It's going to be separate timelines where things are happening because Beyonder is playing the puzzle pieces right to where he wants them to be. So he knows everything that happens in these alternate timelines, and there's going to be something at the end of What If that is going to blow our fucking minds, and it's going to canonize What If. That's what I think is going to.
I wonder if the cosmic end. I like the Beyonder take on the What If trailer. I wonder if there's the potential for it to be one of the Watchers there, because they really did just kind of introduce them early on the phase, and then just never touched on them again. And I feel like with all the because there's clearly like
I think
going
it's the
forward, there's
Watcher.
a lot of cosmic characters are going to be put into play, and the Watchers, the Eternals, like Captain Marvel's going to have a bigger role, and we might even see like a different version of Marvel,
Adam Warlock
version. Yeah, like
Adam
I feel
Warlock,
like
that's gonna be a big one too.
The Watchers. I feel like the
Lady
Watchers,
Thor. Yeah,
which we know
speaking
that's
on that,
coming.
Yeah,
with Love and Thunder.
What cosmic foe do you think is in Love and Thunder? What villain? Didn't Christian Bale get cast?
Yeah, he got cast as Grodd, whatever his name, Grodd the Butcher or whatever called.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, so
Continue.
he's immortal. he's not immortal. He's not a cosmic entity, but
yeah,
I don't think they have to. I don't think they have to do a cosmic entity for Love and Thunder. I think they could very easily just run into an enemy that was, a enemy of Odin at some point or another.
Gore the God Butcher.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, I think he's just a bounty hunter. Yeah, I think there's a lot going on, a lot they're setting up for, and honestly, it's kind of like overwhelming to like think about because there's so much happening at one time that I'm like, oh my god, like how are they like every time me and Devin talk about like our thoughts on like what could be happening at some point or another. Rare some mics in the chat. What's up, baby? We always come back to this thing where it's just like, or for me at least, Spider-Man is already so, like, it's aiming so high. I don't feel like there's any more room for Spider-Man to do what it's already doing, because we're talking like Spider-Man's gonna be probably, more than likely, the first result of the repercussions of Sylvie killing Immortus. Spider-Man's probably gonna be our first example of the repercussions. What were you gonna say, Genesee?
I'm trying to think about that, because so that's assuming Shang-Chi will not take place in this timeline.
I think that Shang-Chi happens while Spider-Man Far From Home happens.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah. So I think Shang-Chi is going to be a little bit more in the past, and they're gonna use Shang-Chi to sort of like run into something that has to do with Kang, and that's going to be kind of like where that leads into. But everything post that, Spider-Man Far From Home or No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, that stuff is then going to start taking off when it comes to Kang. My thing is go ahead.
Oh yeah, say your thing.
Well, I was just going to say that my thing is I feel like both No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness are already so just like trying to hit something so big. We can't do too much with those already. Like with No Way Home, we're talking 3 different Spider-Men. We're talking 8 different villains. We're talking 3 completely different stories tying into one. We're talking 1 major villain that they have to pick for that out of the 8 villains they're fucking giving us already. Like, there's so much that could be going on.
If they can pull it off, it'll be one of the best movies that the MCU has done. But it's gonna be hard.
Yeah,
I think I know what they're doing. I think I know what they're doing now with Spider-Man, and I think it's very obvious, and I might sound like an idiot, but I think they're combining Spider-Verse with the Sinister Six. Because because at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2, they introduced Rhino. We also got Scorpion. If they're bringing in Doc Ock, Green Goblin, and Electro, you bring Rhino over too. We got Scorpion and Vulture.
Well, but that's what I mean is like so they very obviously are using this as an opportunity to make the Sinister Six make sense, right? That totally makes sense. My issue is if they are doing the Sinister Six as a major villain group in the next Spider-Man movie, if they do any more than that, it's going to be too much. It's gonna
Yeah,
be too much.
yeah.
It's gonna be too ambitious. Like that, and that's why I kept like telling you, Devin, that every time you like come up with another idea, I'm like, I don't think they can do it. I don't think they have, like, for a 2.5, 3-hour movie, that's already enough.
The one thing though, it's like they've proven to a point that they can put however many characters they want in a goddamn movie and it works.
Yeah.
You know what I
And
mean?
we'll be here for
Have
it.
they though?
Exactly.
Have they though?
Oh,
I
you
feel
got to see
like
the end
What?
of Phase 3.
For what?
I feel
For
like
what?
Phase
Endgame?
4. I feel like Phase 4 has two major themes. One, Marvel's getting its balls, and two, Marvel has identified that its fans are little hoes, and they will just keep showing up for more, and they can do whatever the fuck they want, and that's what they're doing. They're
Yeah.
saying,
My-
fans, you are our bitches.
So my issue with that though is, like, you're right. They can do whatever they want. Loki sets them up to be able to make any excuse that they want to make anything happen in the movies. I don't think that's their game plan though, because that would be way too easy. Imagine what they could do. Imagine, like, oh, it doesn't matter you died. It doesn't matter you died. There's no repercussions anymore. There's no stakes anymore. Now none of the movies matter anymore, and you're not going to have any reason to be worried about anything, because anybody dying and anything going wrong does not matter. They're not going to do that. They're not
no,
going to
clearly
do that.
not, because that takes the weight out of their own films.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, they're
Right.
like, they have to have something. They have to have
Yeah.
something.
There's got to be a sense of permanence in the universe.
Yeah.
So
Which is hard, because right now there doesn't feel like that.
yeah,
I
Because
think
of
that's what they're
Loki.
going to be working towards, though. Is like they're going to be
Mm.
working back towards that permanence.
Yeah.
Reestablishing
Yeah.
Mm,
yeah.
Which I think is what
I'm-
happens in Multiverse of Madness of Doctor Strange.
Right.
Because the dark
Yeah.
hold that Scarlet Witch has is an important piece of all of this. The Darkhold is an
Mhm.
important piece of all of this, and that's going to be a big, like, Scarlet Witch is still one of the most powerful beings in the MCU. Period.
Yeah.
Point blank.
Period.
And that's going to mean something later on, and I think,
Yeah.
you know, there's something greater there. Devin, you're going to jump in there. I want this to be sort of the last thought here.
Yeah, I don't want people to forget we actually do have a lot of content before the year is over. I mean, we have
Much.
Eternals, which is probably going to explain a lot about this big cosmic,
Yeah.
force
Yeah.
and
That was
how
my
it
thought,
all
too.
works.
Yeah, and that
Um,
comes before Spider-Man. So I think that'll be the next
Yeah.
time we see it come up.
Yeah, we do have Shang-Chi and the Legend of Ten Rings. I'm interested to see where that goes, because out of nowhere in that trailer, you have Abomination for the first fucking Hulk movie,
Yeah.
and you have Wong from Doctor Strange is actually in Shang-Chi. Wong, Doctor Strange freaking sidekick, is in Shang-Chi. So there's our connection to the multiverse.
Well,
I literally was just thinking about this.
Kevin Feige did just go on record, like late last week at some point, saying that, like, it's going to make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then not only that,
Gotta.
Yeah.
we have
Right. Thanks for that, Kevin Feige.
we have Hawkeye coming out as well at the end of this year. We also have something that we haven't seen anything about besides a couple pictures from shooting. We have
No Way Home.
No, Miss Marvel.
It's Marvel.
Yeah.
It's
Miss
Marvel.
Marvel.
Yes.
Is that this year?
You mean
Yeah,
the
late
Mar-
2021.
Oh,
Late
well,
2021.
so when does the
Fall season.
Marvels come out? When does that
The
come out?
Marvels is going to be November 11th, 2022.
Okay, so Miss Marvel's going to set up for her to be a part of the Marvel.
The
Okay.
Marvels.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Cool.
does Miss Marvel have Captain Marvel in it, or is Miss Marvel going to be in Captain Marvel's next movie?
So
No,
the Marvels is basically going to act as the next Captain Marvel movie, where she's going to be connected to Photon from WandaVision and Miss
Yeah.
Marvel. So they're going to be a sort of trio thing.
So much.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's what I mean. They're doing
Yeah,
so
like-
much now. Like,
hmm
If we can
And-
reiterate one thing from this episode, it's the fact that the MCU has absolutely no plan at stopping anything they're doing anytime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
Oh, yeah.
like
Yeah.
full tilt.
And
They're off the rails, and I love it.
while
I'm here for it.
we're on the subject of all this too, with Hawkeye coming out and them confirming they're doing Hawkeye's daughter and Kate Bishop as like
Yeah.
two different Hawkeyes,
yeah.
we all saw Black Widow.
Yep.
Yes.
What's the chance you think we see the widows come after them after that end credit scene?
That is going to be a conversation for another episode because
Yeah.
this
I'm so
has been.
excited.
What was that?
I'm so excited.
I know it's
for
gonna be hype.
Hawkeye.
It's gonna be hype. It's gonna be hype, and we'll have that conversation when we get there because this has been another episode of the Good Kraken podcast, aka a Let's Get Bitchin' / Let's Get Kraken episode crossover thing. It's been amazing. We hit 2.5 hours, guys. Give yourself a hand. The longest episode of Good Kraken so far. Let's fucking go. This is amazing. I love this. I love doing this with you guys. And yeah, we will be back for the next piece of MCU content, whatever that so happens to be, I believe.
What if?
What if? Yes. We can do a conversation about what if. I'm fucking down for that. And we will be back for that with another Let's Get Kraken crossover episode. It's going to be a good time. Tune in with us on Tuesday for our regular Good Kraken podcast episode. Go check out Let's Get Bitchin' with Genesee Gabrielle down here. Go watch that. Go listen to that podcast. It's a fucking good time. We are glad all of you in the chat came in and hung out, including the young gentleman I was asking us about Argentina. It's a good time. And yeah, I love you guys. Y'all be good. And for all of you at home, until next time, be good to each other. And don't let alligators masturbate because it's dangerous. It'll cause a
Glorious purpose.
Glorious purpose. Yes.